Good evening, everybody. So normally, this would be a big weekend at Carleton. Throwback, homecoming, of course, big football game at MNP Park. But now that we live in this very different world still, and there's no season, unfortunately, we decided to honor maybe not the greatest Ravens team of all time, but the only championship team in the history of the Carleton program. And that's from November 16th, 1985, when the Ravens defeated Concordia 46-21 at home to win the OQIFC championship. So here we are virtually tonight with all kinds of Ravens supporters tuned in, including lots of alumni. Good to have you along for sure. And I'm honored to have the coach with me, Steve Sumarah.
How are you tonight?
I'm working with you, so I'm great. We have a lot of fun together, don't we, sir?
We sure do, Dean. We sure do.
I've got to ask you right away, where were you in 1985?
1985, I was at St. FX, my first year of university, and I can tell you we were not in the playoffs that year.
And you were a DB, were you?
Redshirt freshman.
Were you a DB?
A receiver.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Not very good. Stuck it out, though. I stuck it out.
But the program you were with had a lot of good success, didn't they, Steve?
Yeah, it really did. Yeah, absolutely.
All right. So along with me, Dean Roberts, the voice of the Ravens at MNP Park, and head coach Steve Sumarah, we're awaiting Jeff Morris to join us. Jeff has a couple of technical problems to work out, but he'll be along. The former Raven kicker and punter. Jeff, big with the alumni, of course. And let me tell you more about Jeff Morris's Carleton career. He led the league in scoring, 68 points, 13 field goals in there, and he also led the league in punting that year in 85, 38.9 average, and also led the country in most points per game. And it was in 1985 that Jeff Morris became the OQIFC career scoring and punting leader. So we'll get Jeff on and we'll talk about that for sure. Steve, some opening thoughts for you?
Yeah, I mean, anytime you get a chance to watch these older games, it's amazing how different yet how similar the games are. Different concepts, but the concepts that are being run back then have evolved. They're running, as Jeff said, they used to run veer option back then. Well, there's a little bit of that with the zone read stuff out of shotgun and things like that. It will be very impressive. I think the level of play is going to be very good, and I'm actually excited to watch this for sure.
We're going to pick up the broadcast that TSN did of the game. Back then they were doing college football, and you'll notice on your screen the first face you see is Peter Watts, who I had the opportunity to work with when I started my radio career in Kingston. Peter was going to Queens, but he was also the voice of the Golden Gales on their radio station, and had a great career. And we lost Peter this summer, far too young. And Michael Landsberg will handle the play-by-play. And Steve, I think you know the color commentary guy pretty good. Former coach Tuffy Knight.
Yeah, I mean, one of the definite legends in the coaching fraternity in this country, and I mean, just somebody that seems to have accomplished pretty much everything you could at the college level. And yeah, it'll be interesting to listen to some of his take on this as well. This was in his wheelhouse, 1985 for sure.
Where did he coach? He coached in the OUA at one time?
Yeah, he was at Laurier and I believe Waterloo. I think he went back and forth a little bit.
Right. Exactly. And Kim McWaters, who is she's our go-to person for this whole event tonight, has told me to talk about the website, which you should see on your screen, www.slido.do. And when it asks you for a code, just enter Throwback Football. And when you do that, you'll have a chance to ask a question. And Steve and Jeff Morris will answer those as we go along here tonight. Again, it's a website on your screen, www.sli.do, which is Slido, and the code is Throwback Football. And by all means, let's get some questions going about the game in '85. And you're really going to enjoy the video. We've seen most of it on the dry run through, and really looking forward to it. Let's talk more about that '85 season, Coach. The Ravens won preseason games against Waterloo and Acadia, who were ranked 6th in Canada in preseason. And then Carleton, went 5 for 2 in the regular season, with both losses being last minute to the Queen's Golden Gales. Offensive coordinator.
I was just going to say that's. I remember being out in the East. I think they actually played Acadia in Moncton. I don't know why that jumped at me, but it was the first time I had heard of a kind of an interlock exhibition game, and we heard lots about them. And actually, somebody that I played against in high school was a very prominent member of this team, Clarkie Oliver.
So I think Clarkie is joining us tonight. I see his name on the list.
He was a legend. Still is.
You said he was a funny guy too, right, Steve?
Oh, absolutely. Character.
So the offensive coordinator of the Ravens in '85 was Rick Zimmich, who had been a Heck Creighton Trophy winner as a quarterback at that other place. The place on Lees Avenue? That would be the GG's. Yeah.
Yeah.
Heck Creighton Trophy. You heard that one. Yeah. And he installed a new veer option offense at the start of the '85 season. Again, what's that veer option offense all about?
Basically, it's about, essentially not blocking certain people and reacting off of them with the dive and the pitch series. I have to jump in. Rick actually was probably one of the first coaches in the U Sport now, but back then in the CIAU to put the five receiver sets, and he threw the ball a ton when he went on to Laurier. So it's funny to think of him as a run first veer option guy.
Carleton had an outstanding offensive line. They were nicknamed the McHogs by the media. Kerry McCowell, Kevin McCarroll, Joe McDonald, John Oresti, and Ron Wilson. The quarterback was Cam Collins, who led the OQIFC in both completions and yards passing with 115 for 1,260 yards. Wide receiver John Dolly led the OQIFC in both receptions and yards receiving with 47 catches for 543 yards.
Well, I think they will.
Joe Barnaby was third with 24 catches for 325. Running back Mark Brown was second in the league in rushing with 719 yards.
And a triple option, and able to perform both.
Leo Benvenuti, who plays at my golf course. He's a pretty good player out at Greensmere. Led the league in punt return average, 11.6. Defensive back Dave Dawson was fourth in the OQAFC in unassisted tackles with 28. Linebacker Tom Timlin, who I believe is joining us tonight. Hi, Tom. Fifth in the OQAFC in total tackles with 61 back in 1985. Some pretty impressive numbers, Coach. That hasn't changed, has it? OUA football has always been pretty good, right?
Oh, absolutely. And, the old black and blue division, I mean, the OUA was definitely a run-first thing, and the fact that Tom
Stingers against the Carleton Ravens for the championship of the Ontario Quebec Intercollegiate Football Conference, and a berth against Calgary in the Western Bowl, which TSN
and because of that great year in '85, Collins became the OQAFC career passing leader. Dolly was the league's career receiving leader. Tom Timlin became the only Raven to ever be named a league all-star 4 times. Also named to that OQAFC team were Cam Collins at quarterback, Mark Brown at running back, John Dolly wide receiver, Angus Donnelly, a defensive lineman, and Jeff Morris for his punting, although his kicking was pretty good too. We're still trying to work on Jeff's technical issue and get him on the broadcast for you tonight. Angus Donnelly was named an all... Sorry, go ahead, Kim.
I'm just going to say I have a couple of comments here I thought I'd throw in. That
sure, jump in.
So Andy Donovan says, it's great to see you both, and he was the pep band drummer at this game.
All right.
And Paulo Holland says it was a deep team, many injuries on both sides of the ball. Kudos to Ace and his recruiting.
I'll tell you more about Paulo. So when Carleton beat Bishops in the OQIFC semifinal, Cam Collins had injured his knee in the final game of the regular season. So that meant that Paulo Hollins, the backup, would start the semifinal. Hadn't started a game at quarterback since grade 10. He threw 4 touchdown passes to Joe Barnaby in the win. Unbelievable, Paulo.
That's good
Mark Brown was-
recruiting.
What's
Good
that?
recruiting, and man, I can tell you, I was in a situation like this once. It didn't go that well.
Yeah, no, huh? Yeah. Mark Brown was injured, leaving that game with a hip injury after running for 90 yards and 5 carries. And Concordia knocked off Queens in the other semifinal for the right to take on the Ravens. I know Ace Powell's joining us tonight. Speaking of good golfers, Ace was the OQIFC Coach of the Year in 1985 for the Carleton Ravens. We're just getting the player introductions now on your screen. Mark Simpson, Bobby Simpson's son, I believe. Isn't it, Steve?
I think you're right.
Yeah. The great Bobby Simpson.
And the remaining players and coaches of the Concordia
I can see
Stingers.
one glaring difference between that era and our era is just the pure size of the players, especially on the lines.
Yeah. And why is that now? Is that just you guys focus on that as coaches more?
Yeah, and it just seems like more of those bigger kids are getting involved at a younger age, and I mean, you rarely see 6'6", 6'7" guys, and most offensive lines have at least 2 or 3 of them.
Exactly.
I played with his brother at St. Abex. His brother was a kicker.
Robert Forrest.
Here come the Ravens. We'll roll this for a little bit. Jump in if you need to, Coach.
At linebacker, number 46.
I love the neck rolls. I'm just gonna.
Yeah.
That's just awesome. That just brings back a lot of good memories.
What was that thing made of?
It was foam.
Just foam, right?
At defensive back, number 31, Chris Barnaby.
Was Chris related to Joe?
At defensive
Paolo
back,
said
Go
to
ahead.
tell you that it was grade 12.
Ali.
It was great. Oh, okay. Then he can blame Jeff Morris for that. Jeff who has Jeff had grade 10 down, but Jeff, boy, he's just like a walking encyclopedia when it comes to Carleton football.
Starting at safety, number 24, Frank Bastianelli.
Now there's a safety number 24 for sure,
Starting
right?
at rover, number 28, Patty York.
Steve, is there still a rover on your team?
And
No,
the
I mean
remaining
the name
coaches
changed.
of
I
the
think the
Carleton
rover would be
Ravens.
a free safety,
Yeah.
if I'm not mistaken. I think we played
these Carleton Ravens don't deserve to be here.
free
in the
safety, and they
championship
called
game.
them a
won
rover
5 of
back
7
then.
games during the regular season,
Yeah.
and it literally blew Bishops out last week. But the same can't be said for Concordia. They won just 2 of 7.
I
in the
must
regular
say, the
season.
one thing
They got
I'll
by
always
Queens last week, but Queens didn't have its
remember,
#1
and I guess
quarterback,
it's
Pete Harrison.
a shout
So there
out
are
to
some
Wayne
questions, but
Baird,
they don't deserve to be here.
but the field
The thing
at
about Concordia is they
Carleton
are a
was
hungry
considered
football
the
team.
best
In the words
grass
of Skip
field in the
Rochette, their
country.
coach, we have
forever.
something to prove today, and we'll see if they can prove it right after this.
And didn't he use some connections with the Ottawa Rough Riders to get some footwear in
Well,
for
you
that
saw
game?
the
I
two
hear?
teams being introduced. Here
Yeah,
is the
that's.
third team on the
I'd be
field
curious
today.
to hear
And referee
Jeff's
Dave
version of
Schwartz, and here
that.
you see the rest
Yeah,
of the
because
officiating.
it was
Just so
freezing
you know,
rain the
these
night
guys
before.
don't
Ontario
change.
Quebec Championship
Yeah.
game. The
It
Carleton
was freezing rain the
Ravens
night before the
Concordia
game.
Stingers.
Temperature below
Pain in the
0.
ass. Pain in the ass in
That blanket
85, the
certainly is
officials pain in
belonging
the
where
ass
it is. We
today.
wouldn't mind it up here. It's a cool and cold day, Tuffy, but it feels like
Oh yeah,
football.
we've been there.
Well, it's football weather. It's
Yeah,
not
apparently,
the,
apparently
ground is
Wayne
frozen. I
Baird
think that's gonna
he
play
brought
base
over
for
dozens
today's
of boxes
game.
of
Not
broom
gonna
ball
be able
shoes
to
for the
make the
players to
cut. Some
try.
of the players are wearing broom ball shoes and a variety of footwear.
And fullback
but,
Mark Skidmore earned
it
the
is
nickname the
frozen,
Icebox
and
for his
it's
performance
cold.
in
It's
that
gonna be
game.
tough to hang on
Powered
to
his way
football.
for
As we look at Jeff Morris, the
143
kicker for
yards
Carleton,
rushing
tell me
and
quickly, Tuffy,
4
when you coached, when you had a
touchdowns.
field like this, what did you tell your players?
Well, you're going to make some
I think
mistakes.
Get this, he was-
I would always say you
For
try
me,
to
the
eliminate
funniest part
turnovers
of the
at
game,
this point
because
in time.
obviously
You don't
the
want to turn the ball
straight-on
over,
kicker
make the
Yeah.
team
no
drive
longer
60,
exists in the
70
game,
yards.
but
Turnovers will play a major
to
role
watch
in today's
Jeff
game and the outcome
do
of it.
this,
And Jeff
pretty
Moore is
funny.
set to kick it off.
Wasn't
for
like, isn't that like the Lou the
He
Toe
gets into
Grows'
it.
shoe he's wearing?
It'll take Ed Shirley back to his 7-yard line, and we're underway in the Ontario-Quebec
so.
championship game.
Like they tied that, like they had a lace on that shoe, didn't they?
Let's set
Yeah. Pull it back, pull the toe back, and
Yeah.
An offense that likes to run the ball. The key here, the change, Albert Calagiro is out. He carried the ball for 194
I recognized
yards
one
last
name
week.
on the
He's
Stingers
injured
roster, and
today.
that was
He won't
Rocco
play. The
Romano,
tough
went on to
inside
play in the
receivers,
CFL with.
Mirko
Yeah, I
Yorosz
remember
and
that.
Tony
The other
Diorio,
names didn't
6'4",
ring a bell to
6'5".
me.
Look for quarterback Joe
No.
Serino to go to his inside receivers.
And who was
early on.
coaching back then?
That's
Any
Serino,
idea?
number 7 that you see. First down
No,
for
I
Concordia.
Jeff will
didn't
know.
recognize, even when I saw the name, I didn't recognize.
Okay.
And Ed Shirley doesn't get much, just the nose
Of course, Nick
ball,
Benjamin
maybe over the
was their
30-yard
big
line.
star
It'll be second
the year
down
before
and
in
7.
Concordia in
In the words
'84,
of Coach
and then
Steve Rochette,
was the Riders'
I
big
think we can run
draft
against
pick,
them,
right?
Tuffy. I'm not sure we can pass.
I coached his son Ryan at St. Mary's. Ryan is a real estate agent now in Ottawa.
Footing to get
Nice.
the quick break on the outside, and they were able to come up.
You guys hear me?
Jeff's not the only one with useless knowledge.
And
See
if
that?
indeed they pass,
is that
as
Jeff?
one would expect they will here,
Hey, guys.
Look for them to go to their
Hey,
inside
Jeff.
receivers. Number 74, Tony Diorio.
We
and
got
number
our
81,
technical
Mirko
issues
Yorosz.
sorted out.
Glad
Joe
you're
Serino back to
on.
pass. And Serino brought down short of a first
They didn't
down.
put names on the jerseys back then, huh, Jeff?
Good coverage.
We
The
couldn't
thing
spell
that
back
impressed me
then,
was the
so
defensive lineman at
Carleton wasn't
caught the
quite
quarterback. Now, we're
where it
gonna
is
see this
now
again. Now, watch
academically
this
back
guy's a
then.
little bit, looked like a little bit slow foot.
Well,
lineman.
one of the
Watch now,
interesting
because he
things
does a good
about
job,
this
but he lets
play
him break
is
it. Here we come out there now.
the
61
tackle
for Carleton. Chasing it
right there.
from behind.
That's a horse collar in
That's
today's
Hurley.
game. That's a
Caught the man,
15-yarder and
from
an
behind.
automatic
That's an
first
outstanding
down.
play by Hurley. He had good foot speed there.
I don't know if you guys noticed when they introduced the officials, but we played with only 5 officials on the field back then. They use 7 now.
Yeah. I cursed them upside down then, Jeff, and even now. So.
You're good at it, though. You're so good at it.
That's Tom Timlin there, the linebacker.
Jeff,
You can
right
tell
off the
he
top,
wants
what was
to
your-
run the football.
What was the biggest thing you remembered about this game? Anything in it stand out?
Carleton will scrimmage the ball
Other than Mark Skidmore having the coming out party of his life.
Yeah.
The field was frozen. It was cold. The ball was frozen. And I know you told the story of Wayne Baird and the getting the broom ball shoes. We showed up that morning. It had been freezing rain the night before, and it went down to about -8. And so the temperature was around 0, but with the wind chill, it was well below 0. There's a good run by Clark Oliver there. He's a good power runner. We showed up at the locker room, and there were boxes and boxes and boxes of shoes sorted out by size. And Wayne had used his contacts with the Ottawa Rough Riders and had gone out and sourced 30 or 40 pairs of broom ball shoes. So everybody was trying on broom ball shoes. So if they show a close-up of a huddle or anybody's feet, you'll see most of the guys are wearing white broom ball shoes, and it really gave an advantage to the offensive line. We got a lot of push on those guys, and it made a big difference.
3, so they have the option of doing either here. The quarterback is Paolo Hollins, and he gives it to Skidmore up the middle, and Skidmore, no question.
They were so concerned with the outside game and shutting down our option that they gave us the inside, and you'll see our offensive line just blowing big holes open in the 1 and 2 hole, and you know the gaps were just huge that they were giving us.
You know
what else is amazing? Skidmore was a transfer student, you were telling me, from McMaster. He had to sit out the first 2 games of the year and didn't play much. In fact, didn't get a single carry in the regular season.
He was a guy, he's from Burlington, and Ace recruited him. Ace recruited him out of high school, and Mark chose to go to McMaster, and they left it at Ace telling him, hey, if things don't work out, give us a call someday. And things didn't work out. So in 1984, Mark had played the first 2 games of the season. For Mac, you have to sit out 365 days. So he was able to play from the 3rd game on, but he didn't get a carry through the entire regular season. He was used primarily as a blocker because Mark Brown and Clark Oliver got the bulk of the carries. And in this game, you know, the option, maybe Steve, you can go into the option that we ran. But everything's based on reads, and it's a mesh handoff, and when the hole's wide open in the center, you're just going to give it to the fullback all day long.
Well, what's interesting right now, just watching that last play, I mean, you can tell, as we talked at the beginning about the size of the offensive line.
I'm sorry, Lord.
The one thing that these guys bring is they're very athletic. And the amount of pulling that they just did with the double pull there, running some buck sweep and things like that.
And Hollins takes it himself, and Hollins may score inside the 15 and down at the 5-yard line. So what looked to be a busted play early on turned out to be a great opportunity.
It wasn't a busted play, Michael. It was the triple option again, only it wasn't done very smoothly. Here we are again. Watch the triple option. He fakes the
Was attendance pretty good back then, Jeff?
Attendance was really good. We were getting anywhere from 2,000 to 5,000 fans per game from about 84 through 86. The team was ranked. The team was doing very well, and it really became the thing to do on campus. And the school and the students really got behind us. And it was, you know, I remember my first game was a preseason game in '82 against McMaster. And there couldn't have been more than 100 people in the stands. It was a Friday afternoon in the pouring rain, and it just grew. The momentum grew. You know, you mentioned the pep band. That was a big part of it. It just became like a college football experience. That was Joe Barnaby that caught that slant pass the week before against Bishops. Joe caught 4 touchdown passes in one game. There's only been 3 times in Carleton history that a player has scored 4 touchdowns, and Joe Barnaby and Mark Skidmore did it in back-to-back weeks. The only other time it happened, I believe it was Ross Reed did it in 1969.
To Oliver, and good defensive play there by Concordia. They stacked it up. So now, Coach
Kim McWaters, anybody with questions yet on your end?
The situation, do you go for it or not? 3rd down and 1.
Well, it's decision time. I think you go for it. And I would go for it for this reason and this reason
There's
alone.
a couple on the page that they've been typing out. Well, not questions, just comments. They're talking
are good,
about, you know, a moment to remember Joe McDonald. And then Randy Allen was asking who else from the team we lost too young. Jeff, would you know that?
I know that Brian Baskerville was on this team, and we've lost him. And we lost Dan Petchnick, but he was, look at the size of that hole for Skidmore. You know, they were expecting everything outside. Dan Petchnick passed away a couple of years ago. He was with the Argos by this point, but he was a big part of this this gang too.
So again, with your comments, look for that website on your screen, www.sli.do, which is Slido. And when it asks for the code, you just enter Throwback Football. Kim McWaters will look after those, and Steve and Jeff will comment on those. And
you know what is actually quite funny about this, Dean, is just the way that you can see how many years have passed about those trees. The trees around the field and things like that.
Yeah, I noticed that too.
Yeah, it's wild because the field is now pretty secluded.
Yeah, I'm always amazed from the press box at the traffic going by on Bronson during a game. It's just crazy.
They did just an
if you get a chance to see the other end zone, the one that we're defending right now, the big trees that are there now were actually saplings, and they were planted that year during the season. So the trees that are huge are all about 2 feet tall during this game.
Here it comes. Jeff Moore's kickoff.
Good depth there, Jeff. Good depth.
And Ed Shirley, that is, brought down at the 20.
Now, number 19, Jim Lianos. You know, he's got to be the fastest guy we had in that era, because we had so many kickoffs that we were getting the other team inside the 20, inside the 25 consistently, and it was because Jim Lianos would run down on kickoff cover and he'd beat everybody downfield by 10 yards. That guy was lightning fast and just an absolute monster hitter. Special teams really were a big part of that team and our coverage teams. So, you know, Jim Lianos, Dan Massey, guys like that were phenomenal.
That's Joe Serino, the quarterback. The give to Shirley. And Shirley
interesting the front that the defensive front you're playing with the double eagle look with two mugged up linebackers.
Looked like Concordia's offensive line had a
we had very strong linebackers on that team. Of course, Tom Timlin, who's you know, if there's a Mount Rushmore of Carleton football players, there's Bob Eccles and Tom Timlin, and then decide the other two, because those two guys are locks. But because we were so strong at linebacker, Lauren Waters was there, Bob Forrest was doing really well. We played a 3-4 a lot because we had so much depth and talent there, but our defensive line was really strong. There's John Hurley, he was our nose tackle. Angus Donnelly was great. Jeff Medley, 51, he was good. We had Randy Allen, number 75, Barry Bassingthwaite. Like, we had a lot of depth, but our defense, interior-wise, teams had a really hard time running on the inside against us.
He's not in there almost, and you're banking on him to come in there and pick that up.
Jeff, Randy Allen is asking why they called him Shaker Patterson.
It's a very difficult problem for them.
Because when I hit people, they shake.
They got to adjust quick.
Sort of like Jack Kazar. I know Jack's with us tonight.
Cam Collins is saying it was a great playoff performance. Paulo DeSalva was also part of our team. Lost too early.
Oh yeah, Jim DeSilva played on the 1983 team, and
put a lot of pressure on your defense.
Yeah.
The ball inside the 40, already down against an offense.
So what year were most of these guys in at the time in '85, Jeff? Do you know? Was
it the majority of the guys were fourth year? Like when Ace came in 1982, there were probably 20 to 25 of us that were first year players that year that were starting or playing a lot. And this sort of was the team rolling through. We had other guys, we had other pieces that came along afterwards. Some of the great players that weren't in their fourth year this year, but you know, we had, if you look at our offensive line there, Kerry McCowell, Kevin McCarroll, number 62. You know, those guys were fourth year. So other guys came in, but one thing that's really interesting though is that there were a lot of guys that played in '82 who were in their fourth and fifth year. Think of guys like Pat McGinn and Kevin Dalladay, Jeff Jacobus, a lot of guys like that, Gary Shaver. They had their fingerprints all over this team, because when we came in, we were such a young team in '82, but those guys were really like coaches on the field, and we learned so much from the guys that were fourth and fifth year veterans that, you know, their fingerprints are on this team, and even though they were graduated by then, they were a big part of this team.
You have a bubble, and you have the main outside main.
Interesting to see so much under center. I mean, you watch today's game, and everything is in shotgun, and
Collins will throw it again. The ball tipped and almost intercepted. That's one Skip Rochette would have liked to have seen caught.
Yeah, let's give a shout out to some of Ace's assistant coaches back in '85.
Our defensive coordinator was Jim Chirelli, and he was a veteran Ottawa coach. He had been the coach of the Sooners and head coach everywhere. He's a phenomenal coach. We also had Rick Smidge, our offensive coordinator. Mike Beausoleil, he's passed on now. He was our offensive line coach. Hugh Gallagher was one of our coaches. He looked after our secondary, and Hugh was a star defensive back at Carleton in the 70s. Bob Swan looked after our receivers. Mike Belenko, our defensive line. So we had a great coaching staff. Mo Rodrigue was another guy. Ace recruited Mark Brown out of Woodsworth, and Mo Rodrigue, who was a college star who had been drafted in the CFL, was the head coach at Woodsworth. So not only Ace was telling me, not only did he get Mark Brown as a recruit, but he brought along a great assistant coach along with him. So it was a pretty good deal. But yeah, we always had, Ace always managed to have a fantastic coaching staff.
The old OC transfer bus go by.
From the 31-yard line, and he nails it right through.
Good job.
So Carleton doesn't get the 7 it would have liked, but they get the 3.
And
look at that
points on the board.
How skinny I am.
10 minutes.
God,
Look how humble you are too. You're not jumping around and going
right after.
It's good. 10-0 lead, first quarter, right?
Here. They trail a 10 to
Michael Landsberg's pretty good on the play-by-play. I don't think I'd ever heard him do it
This
before.
is the best field position they've had. They've got the ball to
Michael Landsberg was, and it's funny, you think of TSN back then, 80, 83, 84, 85, or 84, I guess, was their first year, 84, 85, 86. TSN really made a commitment to Canadian University football and really helped the sport grow.
By number 8, Frank Montalban.
But they didn't keep it that long, did they, Jeff, really?
I don't know. Maybe it was about a 5-year run, but it's too bad because they really put U Sports on the map back then.
Yeah.
Doug Jackson made that play there. Probably the first guy I ever met that had a mullet. And Doug was a great guy, a really good hitter. Doug's claim to fame was he's from Sault Ste. Marie, and when they were kids, he grew up with Ron Francis, the NHL star, and his claim to fame was that when they were 12, he punched out Ron Francis and gave him a bloody nose. So,
was the receiver, the running back out of the backfield. So
a shout out to Mark Lee, who I think is with us tonight. Mark doing a great job on university football still.
Well, the Carleton defense has done just a great job. They have limited Concordia to two plays and a punt, 2 plays and a punt.
Mark
yeah, I would like to see Mark on TV every week doing a game. Like it would be great if we had that.
Yeah.
Back deep for.
Dean, Jennifer Brenning and I were talking earlier today about, this was essentially the heyday of university football in Canada. We had, if you remember this, Jeff, the Geo Trackers.
And that's Dolly out the 50
we had the,
Carleton again in good field position.
TV game of the week.
I mean,
there was a lot of real positives going on in university football at this time.
Like I said, they've just done a
Jeff, were they doing quarterback clubs back in your day too, like they did with the Riders? Was any of that going on?
Not at the school. Every now and then you'd hear about a Rough Riders quarterback club. But it's funny because the school actually had their own quarterback clubs on campus back in the early 70s. But we haven't seen anything like that.
We did
that was a really effective play for us when we'd sort of set up the option to the right side, and then the quarterback would reverse pivot, and we ran that play a lot. And again, that's taking advantage of the defense over pursuing.
I'm a little late with this, Jeff, but Clark Oliver's telling you that was a good kick.
I think 3 times on that play last week.
Thanks, Clarky. On occasion when it went through the post.
And I'm not sure who this is, but he says Jeff's celebrations were curtailed in his rookie year by Bucky Close.
Complete to Dolly, and you can see why he caught so many during the year. The contact.
Where did you learn to kick, Jeff? High school?
That goes back again to the first.
Yeah, I played soccer growing up, and then my last year of high school, I was an option quarterback, and I tore my Achilles and had trouble place kicking, and I was at a camp that Bernie Ruoff ran, and Zenon Androzician was there, and he taught me how to kick straight on. And that was just a couple of months before my first year at Carleton. And I tried it out, and I was hitting from 55, no problem. And by the time I was in my second and third year, I was hitting from 60 easily at practice. But I gave up a lot on accuracy to gain the distance.
Holland on the option. That's Brown. He has with him. Brown has good speed, and he cuts back, but he lost his.
Steve, you don't see that play much anymore, right?
Strung it out pretty well.
No.
Well, they did Concordia did a pretty
never
good job
see
it.
Actually,
if he hadn't lost his footing and he can make
funny
a
that
he's going to get some more yardage.
Evolution
now,
of those kind of plays.
He is the Ontario Quebec nominee for
just
Rookie of the Year, but he does have
the quarterback running.
He won't see the kind of action that he would in
you only see a couple teams in the conference doing that, like Waterloo, Ford. you know, when Western had Merchant there, most of the shotgun, zone read action,
the ball slides over
you know, you're just a lot more throwing than in these days. Although I am quite impressed how much you guys are throwing here.
Yeah, knocked him down right at the line of scrimmage.
We threw out a three-step drop a lot. Didn't use our slot backs too much, but John Dolly, number 70 that you see there, and Joe Barnaby, they were second and fourth in the league in receiving. So we threw a lot of fade patterns and a lot of slants coming in. But again, a lot of stuff three-step.
Yeah, definitely.
So Jeff, I don't know what I'm getting myself into here, but Bob Forrest says, tell the baby seal kicking.
We've all said and done stupid things in our life. And I was interviewed by in 1984, I was leading the country in punting, and the Charlatan decided to do an interview with me. And they asked me this, the guy asked me this crazy question. He said, look at the coverage down there, getting in there inside the 5-yard line. That's fantastic coverage. There's Jim Lianos again. The guy asking the question started the interview by saying, all kickers are weird and flaky. Are you like that too? And so I just thought, okay, I'll play along. I said, well, I'm just like everybody else. The only thing is when I'm kicking the ball, I pretend it's a baby seal and I'm clubbing it with my foot. And I was just joking when I said it, but sure enough, there it is in the newspaper. And I don't think Ace ever let me talk to the media ever again after that.
It makes it difficult to operate your offense when you're back.
That's why you went into the media world, was it?
I like asking the questions, not answering them.
And just what Concordia did not need.
There's Frank the Magnet Bastianelli with a pick six.
I was going to ask you where he got the Magnet nickname.
His nickname.
The ball just comes to him like he's a magnet.
Pretty much, yeah.
I think that was it.
I was on a Zoom call today, and we were talking about turnover ratios. And the percentage of games won by, depending on the percentage of turnovers, we were using PFL stats. And when you're +1 in the turnover margin, you win 74% of the game. If you're +2, you're up to 84. And if you're +3 or more, you're 100%.
Last week,
so
Steve Preston came in
there's a +1 on the board.
And he slipped on the first play, and they didn't put him back in. This time, I think Coach Skip Rochette would have liked to see him slip and not throw that ball.
Well, see, as he rolled out, the goalpost was in his way. And he had to roll out probably deeper than he wanted to, a little further than he wanted to. Then when he got out there, he just underthrew the ball.
Jeff Morris puts it right through again. 17-0. Now the Carleton Ravens starting to walk away with this one. 1:37 to play in the first quarter. So Concordia now
well done,
trouble, even though it's still early. 17-0, you see the score amidst all of the excitement down at the Carleton bench is Peter Watts. Peter?
Michael, I think the big point is the wind coming from the southeast has been blowing into the face of Concordia in the first quarter. A couple of bad punts, and certainly throwing that pass into the wind was ill-advised, and that's why Carleton is doing so well. We'll see what happens in the second period when Concordia gets advantage of the wind.
They don't have it here, and this time Shirley taken back to his 4-yard line. What they could really use is a return. First of all, he's got to pick up the ball. Well, it's such
great coverage,
right
inside the 20 again.
Has none of it. They just can't do anything right.
That makes for a long field, especially when you're going into the wind.
That's very frustrating for the coach. You're on the sideline, and you're trying to get the team fired up a little bit and get them to get a little bit excited.
I'll tell you a quick story. The tailback for Concordia, Ed Shirley.
Every time they move,
we played Concordia earlier that year. It was actually 2 weeks before we played Concordia out on our home field. We beat them 31-20. And Ed, I remember him from high school. He went to Central Tech in Toronto, and he was one of the top sprinters in Canada out of high school. Big, athletic, fast, really tough guy to bring down, and dangerous in the open field. He was the punt returner, and they ran this twist return, and it was like the parting of the Red Seas. There wasn't a body between the hash marks, and I'm the last guy back. And I'm not a good open field tackler at all. And here comes Ed Shirley, who runs a 10-800 meters straight at me. And he gets about 15 yards from me, and we're looking in each other's eyes, and he starts doing all these dances and deeks and jukes and thinks he's going to like corkscrew me into the ground. And he gets 5 yards away from me, and he just dropped the ball, and it just fell in front of him, and I pounced on it. And he's like cursing and swearing because he fumbled. And I looked at him and I winked, and he started yelling at me, and he was so mad. And about 10, 15 years later, I'm living in St. Catharines, and I'm at my dentist's office, and we got talking about football, and he said, "Oh, you may know this guy that I know. You might have played against him. His name's Ed Shirley." And I started laughing, and I told my dentist that story about how he was how he started dancing around and fumbled the ball to me, and he was so mad. And even when we shook hands after the game, he was like, "Oh, Morris, you piece of blank, blank, blank." And so the dentist went home that night, and he ran into Ed Shirley in his driveway, and he said, "Oh, Ed, you won't believe who I had in my chair today. I had Jeff Morris." And Ed was like, "Oh, that's so-and-so." And he told the dentist the exact same story except from his perspective. So it was really funny. And then Ed came to my office a couple days later, and we went for lunch, and we had a good laugh about it. But it was kind of one of those funny moments. Ed actually has show dogs now. He's on the dog show circuit, which is funny because he looks like he could still play. And there he is in a three-piece suit, prancing around the ring like in Best in Show, and with his dogs. But a great guy. But just one of those funny memories from either side of the coin.
Well, the quarterback there is running to his left, and he's a right-handed quarterback throwing the ball.
This guy is really struggling.
Get yourself set, get your shoulders squared up to the line of scrimmage.
We've got Andy Donovan on here, and it sounds like he's having a little bit of he's reminiscing. He says it's great to hear the name Bob Forrest from Third Glen. We had many Ravens, like my roommate John Oresti, fellow Belvillian, which I'm assuming that's Belleville. In our house, we call it Bell Vegas. Andre Shaw and Dean Human. Lots of names being thrown around there.
Just to give you an idea of the depth we had at linebacker on that team, of course, Tom Timlin, who had been the top player in the country defensively. Lauren Waters was really good. Bob Forrest ended up in the CFL with Ottawa. Our backup linebackers included Andre Shad, who was a second round draft pick, and Dave Haar, who was drafted by the Toronto Argonauts. Were both backups in that game.
Andre related to Mike Shad?
Yeah, they're brothers.
Okay.
That's Angus Donnelly, who was one of the injured players.
Angus Donnelly, an absolute fantastic football player, ended up playing and moving over to the offensive line in his last year because the Rough Riders drafted him and they wanted him as an O-lineman, so he switched sides of the ball. But just a fantastic athlete, tough as nails, like absolutely tough as nails. Great teammate, but Angus was also a national level rugby player, so his weight would fluctuate, especially early on in his career, whether he was playing at rugby weight or football weight. But again, tremendous athlete.
So this time, Skip Rochette may be forced to make a.
You remember the nickname for your defense that year, Jeff?
I remember John Hurley calling the interior the Bermuda Triangle.
Yeah.
And again, everybody would just get lost in there.
Yeah. Not to give away any secrets, but they held Concordia to 41 yards rushing
they're going to be punting with the wind, and they may get Carleton backed up here a little bit.
Do you guys want to forward a bit of this Concordia player?
Yeah.
Down, or?
2 first downs, and they're in striking distance.
I want to see Steve Sumarah in that throwback coach's jacket.
Dan Mallett's back to kick. He'll kick it to Leo Benvenuti.
I want to get the fedora out. I want to be like Tuffy.
Makes any difference? Makes a little difference, not a lot. Dolly slipped a bit. Well, small success there for Concordia. They covered the kick well, and they gave up really as little as possible.
Well, it was a pretty fair punt, and they did just an outstanding job of covering it. And Dolly did slip a little bit
John Dolly, he's a fantastic receiver. That was his career right there on that play. John broke a bone in his back on that play, and that was it. But talk about a guy who was always open. We played in the 1983 Panda game, and John set a school record that still stands with 15 receptions. And all I remember from that game is that in the fourth quarter, Cam would be back to pass, and there would be no one within 10 or 15 yards of John Dolly the entire game. Like, the guy caught everything, and he was always open, and a classic Fred Biletnikoff type of receiver, and took a pounding, and it was really sad. We didn't know the extent of his injury at the time that this happened, but it was really sad to see him down. And one thing Ace talked to me about earlier in the year was how physical the OQIFC was back then. Like, some leagues had teams that were patsies where you knew it was an automatic W with a 40 or 50 point win. Every single game in this league was a close game, and everybody took a pounding. So by the time you got out of this league, it was difficult to advance any further because you were so beat up.
For the first time today, they have the ball in a reasonably good field position. And Tuffy, I get the feeling it's early, but if they're going to...
Were you healthy going into that game in Calgary, the semifinal?
Yeah, I think so. That ball actually popped right out.
Well, we were missing John Dolly, who was the league's top receiver. We were missing Cam Collins, the league's top passer. Mark Brown, who just fumbled on that play. I mean, Mark was hurt and couldn't play. Mark was trying to play hurt in this game, but he wasn't able to play in Calgary. So I mean, everybody was pretty banged up, but you're missing some key guys. Luckily, you talked about football being next man up. Paulo Hollins really came in. You can't say enough about a guy who hadn't started a game since grade 10.
I got to correct you there, Jeff. Paulo got in touch with us and said it was actually grade 12.
Grade 12, okay. Yeah, because I was reading the Ottawa Citizen, Ottawa Sun. They said grade 10, so
okay, no problem.
But I mean, he was a guy that was so well prepped and had so much confidence. And when we played Bishops in the week before this in the semifinal, he threw a couple of early interceptions, and his whole demeanor was like, "Coach, don't worry about it. We got this." And then he turns around and throws 4 touchdown passes to Joe Barnaby. And he ran that option so well, and that's not an easy offense to step in and pick up. So Paulo did a fantastic job.
Yeah, Sereno does a good
Jeff,
job.
your speed on defense is actually very impressive.
And then throws the ball and delivers the ball.
You guys had the pursuit angles, and it seems like we've seen so far. It's impressive how you talk about that line back and forth.
It all adds to it.
Very good.
Couple of good
kicks. Did you have any big kick returners?
Not only were they fast, but they hit hard. Like, you look at guys like Dave Dawson and Bastianelli and Patty York; those guys hit a ton. And there's a big play for us.
You saw him go down on one knee.
Did you have any Tunde Adeleke types returning kicks?
So Concordia
not on our team. Some of the teams we played against had some guys that were pretty electric, like Wally Zatilny at Bishops. Ed Shirley was a threat to score every time he touched the ball, no matter where he was. One guy that we had that really started to play well the following year on this team, Michael Allen, was a fantastic special teams player, but we never used him as a returner because he was such a good kick blocker. And Michael is actually the only Raven in the CFL record book, and he has 5 touchdowns career off of blocked punts that he blocked.
He played in Winnipeg, did he not, after Carleton?
Yeah, he played in Winnipeg, and he won 2 Grey Cups with Winnipeg and one with BC.
Clark Oliver says that John Dolly had 3 touchdowns in the Panda game comeback.
Yeah, he did, and that was I think for other than this game, I think for all of us that played in that era, the '83 Panda game was one we'll never forget. We were losing 28-4 with about 12 minutes left to play, and we ended up winning 33-28.
Watch him cut back and forwards here, breaks the tackle. You know, and then that's it. They're not going to catch him. That may be what Concordia needed to fire.
I was just texting with Mark Lee, and he made a great point about the size of the gear, the size of the shoulder pads that these guys wore. They look like coat hangers.
Yeah,
massive.
And then that's why the ball.
And with the baggy jerseys, pretty funny actually.
Steve, how much have the helmets improved over the years?
Oh, well, I can tell you the helmets, no question, have improved a ton.
This time, not
you know,
so happy, Peter.
These probably were a lot of guys were wearing the old bike helmets.
The importance of the wind, the big plays in this game.
Believe it or not, Steve, I had a suspension helmet.
With the wind at its back.
Come on.
Yep, I was the last player at Carleton to ever wear a suspension helmet.
All of a sudden, we've got a
Jeff, it answers a lot of questions.
Thanks, Wayne, if you're listening.
Since they have changed ends, Concordia has scored 7. You saw defensively. That's Frank Bastianelli. And Bastianelli does a good job of returning that kickoff close to the 35-yard line, and that's where Carleton
ball return.
Unlike Concordia, Teff, Carleton's a little bit better balanced, and maybe against the wind they can go to their running game and move the ball.
Well, I think that, you know, they're going to have to. The main thing right now is don't turn the ball over. And I said that in the early part of this game, you know, that was a fear that Carleton had, and has gotten them in trouble this year when they were in trouble.
Let's reestablish that offense for you. That's quarterback Paulo Hollins, 3 for 6, but you don't see the INT, the interception, for the touchdown. The deep man, the running back, is number 33, Clark Oliver. The short man is Mark Skidmore. This is Skidmore up the middle. So Carleton definitely has the running game, and against the wind, that running game can win you football games.
Right there at Baldinelli, just made
Skidmore is a good north-south runner, pumps his legs, low center of gravity, hard to bring down.
Does a great job here.
He ran a little inside trap
there. It's a saving tackle right there. He stumbles. See, if he doesn't get that play may go all the way, because he had a couple blockers out in front.
You talked about the speed and quickness of our defense, but our offensive line, you know, it's a different game then, but there was, you know, we had, you take Kevin McCarroll as an example. He was one of the best linemen in the league, but Kevin probably played at 215, 220, where you would never see that even at linebacker today, let alone on the offensive line. But his footwork was so good, his technique was so good. We did a lot of trapping. There was a lot of movement, and you know, the game on the line was just so much different than it is now. We didn't have zone blocking back then, like you see now, where everything is sort of zone blocking left, zone blocking right.
John Dolly, the wide receiver. And that's Clark Oliver, the running back, and Oliver spins off the tackle.
Clark had a big day, 88 yards in that game.
Maybe we can get Peter Watson for an update on John Dolly, the wide receiver.
I can't lie, I'm pretty impressed by his
John is in some pain. It's lower back problem. He tried to go out on the field with the rest of his teammates on offense when Carleton got the football.
When he ran with the ball, especially when he turned the edge, he was the hammer, not the nail, for sure. A very tough, hard runner and a very underrated player.
During the halftime.
Well,
Coach, I'm not seeing a lot of flags being thrown. What's going on there?
5 officials on the field. Yeah. Maybe we need to go back to that.
Skidmore wrestled down to the ground.
It's you know what? Back then there was, you know, safety of game today compared to then.
And
I mean, let's just say it the way it is. The concussion protocols that we have today,
and I think they're encouraging.
And just the amount of you know, physio and preparation that goes into it now compared to
because they're overloading
era.
one side here.
But I'm getting text messages about how physical this game is.
Watch the reverse, and that's what it is.
So true.
The line of scrimmage, a good defensive play there
this
by
is
number
physical
72,
football. Maybe not the biggest guys, but boy, oh boy.
For a couple of reasons. Number one, because of the way
head hunting was allowed, I guess.
And number two, Tuffy, because of the way he looks in sunglasses.
Here we are right here. Watch this. If he gets by this man,
It was definitely the swap paint era.
He's got at least 10 to 15
But there
yards.
weren't the high-speed collisions that you have now.
That drive.
Right.
Try to come back to the weak side, just as what I said. They would try to attack that side. That's where it was open.
Not a bad kick against the wind. Kind of hung up at Shirley. And good coverage.
Jeff, were you a better punter or kicker?
Applied on Shirley.
Way better punter.
He brought it out to about the 23-yard line. Little pushing and
When
shoving.
I had pro tryouts, it was usually as a punter and kickoff guy.
You don't want that pushing and shoving, but I think Skip Rochette would take anything right now that.
What did you take more pride in? Your punting?
But they're playing with a little more intensity right now.
Yeah, for sure.
See it.
Pinning teams down, stuff like that?
Offensively, certainly the defensive score indicates.
Yeah, I like to like that play, for example. You know, that was into the wind. That was about a 35-yard punt, but there was a 2-yard return. And you know, you always want to get the ball up in the air and let it hang and let your guys get down there.
And Sereno pitches it to Mark Simpson, and Simpson brought down in the backfield. That play really stopped right from the start.
Here's Tom Timlin again.
Outstanding linebacker brought him down.
Quick.
Timlin's an interesting story. A couple of years ago, he won the President's Trophy as the outstanding defensive back in the nation, top defensive player. He was then drafted by the BC Lions, and they said he was too slow to play defensive back, so he's moved to linebacker. And again, he's having a great year.
He's an outstanding football player, and I think he has some potential to play in the CFL. It's just he's kind of in between. He's a little bit slow for a defensive back, and he might be a little bit small for a linebacker.
Holding on the play, tough, obviously.
You know, they talk about Tom Timlin, and they, you know, the comment Tuffy Knight just made there, you know, too slow to be a DB, too small to be a linebacker. You know, they said the exact same thing about Brian Urlacher.
He does have the win. And he gets it off.
Okay.
Good defensive play there by the offensive player.
Like, it's too bad that
did a good job to knock it down.
Well, 26, I think it was 26 or 28 for Carleton, almost. Patty York.
So glad to have you with us,
Almost
and we'd like to get your feedback on what you're seeing in this big game in '85 by going to the website that's on your screen. And when it asks for the code, enter Throwback Football, and our Kim McWaters will pass your comments on to
He's 5'10". The man he was
Steve and
covering
Jeff.
is 6'5", and he moved in there and made a good defensive play. Dan Mallett's, his number of punts in the average is maybe not reflective of his ability. All but one of his kicks have been into a strong breeze. This time he has the win.
Even punt formations.
For Concordia there felt that the ball was a little, I can't imagine it being wet, but there was something that he didn't like about it.
Jeff, is that real grass or no?
Like the pitcher in baseball, he didn't like that.
Yeah, that was our grass field.
He's going to find that they're all cold today, though.
What was left of it by that point in the day, but you know, I heard Steve make the comment about our grass being the best in us having the best grass field in Canada. That was the reputation of that field back then, and again, it was Wayne Baird that was responsible for that.
But he's got running room. And I guess if you're Skip
Just so you know, Jeff, I played at St. FX, and we were known as having the worst grass field.
Trailing 17-7. They'll have to get their
That's my excuse anyway.
Couldn't cut in the mud.
Well, you can see the score. Carleton led it 17-0 very quickly.
So, Steve, were you a slot or a wideout, or what were you?
Again,
I was a wideout.
Field position inside the Concordia 50.
Wide, maybe left out should have been a better word.
I'd say get it quick if you're going to get, because it's getting colder. It's not getting any warmer here in Ottawa.
That's quarterback Paolo Hollins, and they go to the reverse again.
Wow.
And Leo
Black counter.
picking and weaving his way on the reverse.
Bringing back some memories of good stuff.
Well, that's the same play basically that they ran the last time, and he just did a better job.
Leo Benvenuti was a strong runner, like he was a receiver, but he was always a good returner and good on these inside slot counters, because it took how many guys are missing him here? How many tackles is he breaking?
Yeah.
Strong runner.
That's just a good job of running there.
First down and 10 for Paolo Hollins inside the 30. That's Clark Oliver. And Oliver met in the backfield.
Clark Oliver is saying that Patty York was a great player and that that didn't get a lot of respect.
And then I believe it was.
It's funny. I know Tom Timlin's on. I don't know if Tom remembers talking about this. We were talking about it a couple of years ago, but we were talking about how hard Patty York hit. Like, he was absolutely fierce as a hitter. And Tom was saying, yeah, tell me about it, because you know, I'd stand somebody up at the line and Patty would be coming in at 100 miles an hour and he'd end up hitting my back. And he probably took more Patty York hits than anybody else. The one thing Patty York was notoriously famous for was our bus trips. They would always have on the bus a garbage can full of cold beer for the way home. I don't know if that's done now, or that's probably not. Sort of.
Jeff? No. Jennifer Brenning is on here. So that does not happen.
Yeah, I didn't think it did. Back in the day, it did, though, and you know, there was enough for 1 or 2 cans of beer for everybody, and we'd be out of beer in 5 or 10 minutes into the trip, and about 45 minutes into the bus ride, you'd hear somebody opening a can of beer, and it was Patty, who'd been squirreling beer into his gym bag, so he got the nickname the Hoarder on our bus trips. Kind of a funny memory, but we always tease him about that, and he says, I could never figure out how to open them quietly.
Make it by a couple or lose a couple.
But again, a different era, a different time. You would never have that now.
The Coach of the Year in the Ontario-Quebec Conference, and now goes into the pool of 4 to be the Coach of the Year across the country.
I don't think that Wayne is watching tonight, but Randy wants to know if Colonel Nasty is on here, and if so, he says hello from Fontaine, and he hopes all's well with his family.
Good running attack, and they have a good pass.
I think it was Randy and Lauren Waters that actually gave Wayne the nickname Colonel Nasty. And I think it was a play on, there was a WWE wrestler back then, Sergeant Slaughter, who was really popular, and Wayne had this really tough and gruff exterior, and Randy and Lauren started calling him Colonel Nasty, and I think it stuck through the generations.
He replaced Cam Collins.
We're afraid. We're so afraid of it. We don't even use the nickname anymore, Jeff.
So Coach Ace Powell has to be pleased with the depth on his team.
Well, whenever you lose your #1 quarterback, you know.
So someone anonymous is saying number 24 is an amusing player, so I'm going to guess it's number 24.
40 points last week, I think, against Bishop, and you score 40 points with the backup quarterback.
And then Clark Oliver is saying that we did have the best field in the conference, unlike Concordia's team.
That's the one interception is the only little black mark he has against him.
Yeah, Concordia was like a cow pasture.
Very quickly. Collins will try to do it himself.
That's a great read.
And coming across the field to make a good hit was Frank Montalpar.
That was the option again, Michael, and he doesn't run it quite as smooth to the left as he does to the right. I can see that.
Why is that?
Well, it's tougher. See, he doesn't get a good ride on the fullback there. He's got to get that ball in a fullback's stomach before the fullback becomes a threat. There's an outstanding job of blocking of 73. Now that is the key to your success on your option, where your outside men can block, and Mark Wilson just did a good job.
And his twin brother, Mike, is the quarterback for Laurier.
And he can run the option there too, I can tell you that.
Mustafa Ali, a cornerback who started the game defensively, is now a wide receiver. He's out of your picture to the right. And that's Skidmore up the middle, and he is brought down, I believe, short of the first down. So now Ace Powell faced with his second big decision. Originally, he went down 3rd and 1 at the goal line and scored a touchdown. This time, it'll be 3rd down and I think about 2.5 yards. At least 2 yards.
Well, they say 3rd down and 1, but I think it's closer to 2.
It is too tough, and they're going to go for it.
Jeff, was Ace a bit of a gambler?
You know, he's got confidence in his defense, and he's got.
I don't remember anything outlandish, but in this, like anything 3rd and 1. I mean, look at where we are in the red zone. But we had such a good push on their line that there's no way we're not going to get 5 yards.
Well, he ran in there with some authority that time. I like the way he hit in there. I'm telling you, he hit in there.
But he wasn't overly conservative. But I wouldn't say he was a gambler, though.
Very determined on that play there.
You may remember him from the OUAA tough. He transferred
to
that's Master this year.
Third down plays that
I didn't
converted on.
He ran in there very hard that time.
He has a touchdown, and he's making the most of an opportunity, replacing Mark Brown, who generally starts at the tailback position.
Yeah, look at how wide open the box is there, Coach.
Skidmore looking for
Yeah.
a second score, and
They're so afraid of us outside with Mark Brown and Clark.
Carleton now leads it 23-7. Skidmore, the
And
story
that's
of this
tough
game.
too. When you're
Back-to-back
that
season
poor
on.
end is
His first
he's on an
opportunity
island
to start
out there.
today, and
Yeah.
again, you'll see why he's
And
making the
angles.
best of that
You guys
opportunity.
had such great angles.
Tough. It's the kind of offense, I guess, that tends to fool you at times. That time, no such deception, just straight ahead.
No, that's just straight in. When you get down there, sometimes that's what you do. If you think
Remember, he ended with 143 yards and 4 touchdowns, Mark did.
Stick it in their ear and overpower them, and that's what Carleton has done. Skidmore did that on the first down. He also did it on
One thing I'll always remember about Mark in that game was after the game, he didn't really say much. He just went up to Ace and he just said, "Thanks for the chance to play, Coach." And then that was it. And you know, very humble and very team oriented, and you know, just a guy that worked his butt off all year, and everybody on the team just loved him.
You guys were a close bunch, Jeff?
Yeah, they did that. And they did it
We
with
were a
more
really
power,
close
you know.
bunch,
They just,
and
like I said,
you know,
got the
you
ball right,
wonder sometime
right
did
down to the
winning
foot
make
right
us
there in the
close,
heart
or
of
did
the
we
defense.
win because we were close?
Well, what's at stake here is
With that team, there was a special kind of bond and relationship we all had, and I think that anybody from this team would agree. We were 55 brothers, absolutely, and it really became relevant in 2010. We had a reunion, a 25th anniversary reunion of this game at Ace Powell's house, and
that's a good kickoff.
you know, nothing had changed.
He's one of the better kickers right now in the country, you know, Michael. This is his draft year, and I think he has a good chance.
Jeff, I want to
Buck
just
says Mark Skidmore skids a tank with Corvette
both
speed.
punts and place kicks. His
Yeah.
punting average was close to 40, and obviously you saw the strength of his leg.
Jeff, you made an interesting comment.
25-yard line.
I don't think you win unless you
Concordia. You
close.
see his record: 21 wins, 29
No.
losses, and 2 ties.
Probably
If this is
the
bright
evolution
spot
of your team,
for
and I'm
Skip
just
Rochette
guessing.
being in the playoffs, then the downside had to be his
It's
first
kind of
3 years.
repeats itself
He won
in
just
these
3 football
situations.
games, and Rochette has the
When
distinction
you have that
of being the
close
only head coach in the
knitness,
CIAU to lose to Trois-Rivières.
it's amazing how much
He brought him on. He started
much more
brought him on very
success you
strong here
have,
the
the
last
trust
few
you
years.
develop
They have a good
amongst
football
your
program.
Finally,
the
they
communication
find Joe
that
he's been
that
open all every
continues
time
to
he's
grow.
come out of the backfield. This time, he'll pick himself up 21 yards, and he's got to be saying,
Absolutely.
"Thanks to get it to me, guys."
Well, that's the first time that they've got the ball to him, and he's been open, like I say, all 3
And
times.
leadership.
Here it is.
You said you had a lot of
Drop back
fourth-year
and he,
guys
pass,
here.
He kind of rolled, semi-roll, I guess, in a straight
Speaks
drop back.
volumes.
And he's out in the flat wide open, and he was open.
Yeah, and I mean,
last
you know,
time
we
right
had
up to the
also,
linebacker.
you know, Tom Timlin is a 5th-year guy on this team, and the leadership he brought was you know, he wasn't a vocal leader as much, but he really held everybody accountable, and it was weird. It was one of those things where he was a guy you didn't want to let down because you respected him so much. You're more afraid of disappointing somebody like that, and he was able to bring the best out in everybody as a teammate. And you know, I played football for 26 years, and the guys that had that ability you can count on one hand.
No question. If you had a bunch of them, boy, you'd win a lot of championships.
Oh, absolutely.
It's Serino back in the quarterback.
Randy Allen says that he agrees with Patty being a hard hitter. The hardest hit he ever received was from Dave Dawson while making a tackle against Concordia. He ear-holed me, and I was concussed for an entire quarter.
See, right now, you know, if they continue to do this, they got time to go down and score. Plus, the main thing here is confidence builder. Look at this. This is just power football right there. Good blocking right there. Breaks and tackles, see?
That's Dave Har there, number 46. I think he was in his first year that year. And Dave went on to become the all-time tackles leader at Carleton until Leon Signorini broke his record. But Dave was another guy that just hit like a freight train.
This time Serino wants to pass, and he looks deep. And in and out of the hands, but likely out of bounds anyway, was the wide receiver Jacques Plurd. But no doubting this. That was his best pass of the
Chris
day.
Barnaby was on the coverage there. And the one thing that was unique about this Carleton team, it's one of the only teams in school history that had 2 sets of brothers on the team. Chris and Joe Barnaby were a wide receiver and a DB, and then Joe and Mike Lianos also played together on this team.
Number 2, Mustafa Ali. He's been playing both ways. He started at quarterback. He's now a wide receiver with the injury to Dolly.
I know him, Moose. I never saw him play football for Carleton, but I know him, and it's kind of neat to see him out there. Mustafa Ali.
Yeah, he came in as a wide receiver. He was a rookie in '85. He came in as a wide receiver and was heavily recruited both in Canada and the States, chose Carleton, moved to defensive back halfway through training camp. So it was kind of like baptism by fire. He was playing corner, but because he was a talented wide receiver, we ran into injury problems. So he actually played both ways in this game.
Their best receiver.
Moose went on to play for Winnipeg and Calgary in the CFL.
Yeah, I think he ended. He played with the Riders maybe 1 year.
I think he had a cup of coffee with the Riders near the end of his career. Yeah.
I remember he would tell me Dexter Manley stories. That's how I remember.
I wouldn't even catch a ball if it's going to hit inside the 5-yard line. Let it hit the ground and bounce.
Dan Mallett, the punter, is also a backup quarterback, so he can do both. And let's see if he turns to quarterback instead of punter here. No, he'll kick it, and he nails one. He's looking for the sidelines, and he catches the sidelines. That is a picture-perfect kick. You can't do it any better than that.
That's a pretty good punt.
Was your counterpart a pretty good punter, Jeff?
So Concordia hasn't had a whole lot to cheer about today, but that's something.
Well, he certainly was there. You don't see a lot of that. Like back then, a lot of the coaching that I got in the States, it was all about hitting the ball out of bounds inside the 5-yard line. And now they do this Australian thing where they pop it up in the air, and you see way too many touchbacks and guys hammering the ball out of the end zone. And I think that hitting the ball out of bounds is a lost art.
Mental patience all over the world. I see that guy out in the stands with no shirt.
Who was your favorite punter to watch?
Was Mike Domagala.
It still has to be.
Oh yeah.
You're not taking off
Mike was good at placing his punts. Sometimes you don't have to punt at 60 yards to have an effect.
146 on the scoreboard. If Concordia can hold them here, they'll have the
ball. It's a bit of a different landscape in the punt cover teams too, because usually teams only put 1 returner back, and in our day they had 3 back. So you couldn't hit a punt, like you couldn't hit a line drive to the field side and get a big roll like you can now, whereas everything was played in the air back then.
Right.
Another thing is, I'm not sure that Carleton might not concede
a safety touch.
Yes.
I don't think they're going to
give up the 2.
And I'll tell you why, because I think they have confidence in their defense that the worst they'll give up is 3.
Pretty stiff wind that day, Jeff.
Yeah, it was. It was pretty windy. We're going into the wind here.
Well, we'll see. Peter?
We didn't concede a lot of safeties back then. Ace was pretty much gave me the green light to let it go out of the end zone most of the time.
Concede to safety and punt the ball away, but get yourself a little bit of field position. That's a tough place to be now. You're leading by 17 points. It'd be nice to hang on to most of that going to halftime. So I think I'd concede it too.
Well, it's 2-2. Ace Powell and Michael Ansberg say kick it. Tuffy Knight and Peter Watts say concede the safety touch.
Well, Peter, we were almost wrong because Concordia fumbled the ball. Carleton almost got it back, but it would have been at the 30-yard line.
Well, we'll see what happens here because we can now look at it retrospectively. And
well, I think Peter Watts and I, we agree on this. I'm glad that Peter has learned some things over the last 2 years about coaching this game.
Yeah, well, I guess I just have to look back to what you said earlier on. You said that Ace Powell was such a fine coach, and, well, I
no question about it.
Okay, Concordia now with the situation.
That's Tuffy Knight saying it the way it is.
Yeah, he was great.
Simpson,
was he a good old Southern boy, Steve?
Or even in the backfield.
Yeah, I mean that accent, holy crap.
He's from Virginia.
Number 47.
I was joking that to Kim that he sounds like Bill Pesci.
Really slow.
Bill Pesci in the Goodfellas.
That's Ace Powell. He and I go back a long way in terms of coaching philosophy.
I'm not saying that. All I'm saying, all coaches disagree at times, and at this point in time, Ace and I disagree on that aspect of it. he's probably going to win this game today and laugh at me.
Serino now at 2nd down and 9. Here comes the rush. And the ball intended for number 21, Dan Mallats, who's also the kicker.
Well, that was, Serino had a lot of pressure on him there, and he didn't throw the ball very well.
Tough, explain it to me, but when I watch the Concordia offense, particularly when they're passing, I just don't feel like it's moving smoothly.
Well, Carleton that time blitzed their linebackers because it was a passing situation. And when he blitzed the linebackers, they looked like they didn't pick him up, and they picked him up a little bit late. And he rushed the throw. It wasn't very smooth.
Dan Mallats now, who was the receiver, now the kicker. He was 10 of 15 on the year in terms of field goals. His longest was 41. This is from 37. Mallats certainly gets it long enough, but just off to the left. As the ball rolls out of the end zone, gentlemen, you find that that's a 1 point.
Yep, so they saved a point.
And Peter Watts is not waving to come in at this point.
I would have gave up the 2, so I would have been wrong.
Well, I mean,
he was criticizing your coaching, Peter, said that you didn't want to come in now because we just got beat by a point. If they conceded, they had given up 2, and now they only had to give up 1.
I still
That's how good our defense was, though. We didn't really have to worry about that.
Yeah.
But certainly that Carleton defense is playing good football in this first half. And again, I keep developing the wind theory here. And it's a good stiff breeze coming from the south. Concordia has it. So far, it hasn't helped very much.
And it's definitely getting stiffer as the game goes on. We'll get a shot of the minute flag for you in a moment. It's now up, and that'll tell you how windy it is. 45 seconds to play. The clock will continue to move in the first half. 24-8 at this point. Carleton leading the Ontario-Quebec Championship game. The winner of this game is then just one.
Talk about the line being small, but if you look at Ron Wilson, who was 57, and John Aresti, I'm not sure what number he is. I think he's 66, maybe 56. 2 huge guys that both could bench over 400.
You get wrapped up in a game and the whole thing, and you don't feel the cold
got
quite
the movement
as bad.
there.
So then we could have expected to see you maybe rip off the shirt and climb up the flagpole like that guy.
I never did anything that brilliant, you know.
Close to a first down. By the where the referee has his foot.
A lot of hostilities during the game, right, Jeff? Pretty
20 seconds to play, so it's not really that critical.
Concordia was always really really chippy back then.
Well, today, and they haven't had any turnovers, which just the one, and that's been the key to their success. I feel.
Clearly, we weren't.
It's really the only bright spot of the game, as you see Mustafa Ali, number 2, a wide receiver at this point. Then he'll don another cap and be a cornerback, and that's Mark Skidmore, who I think has been the story of this game.
To give you an idea the kind of athlete Mustafa Ali was, we had an intramural basketball team made up of football players, and we did pretty well. And I remember Moose would take the tip and he'd put it back. I was playing guard, and he'd break for the other team's basket right away, and I'd catch the ball and just lob it up for him to run under, and he'd catch the ball and do a 360 dunk.
So they are now
Nice.
And it's like, that's the kind of guy that we're, you know, back then, I mean, we didn't have the high performance training center or whatever. He was just a natural athlete with some serious hops.
Yeah. What did we have for the halftime shows back in those days?
In the fourth quarter, and I think we talked about in the past. That's really
pretty much watching, admiring Wayne's grass.
15 minutes of play.
Okay.
So Concordia now has the win.
It was fun when we played Queens because Queens would always bring their Highland dancers and their pipe band and everything like that. That was always a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Jeff, did you guys go in your locker room or did you stay at the field?
Everybody always went in their locker room at halftime.
Now, how far a walk was that for you guys?
For a touchdown.
Yeah.
Right now,
about the same as it is now, actually.
Oh, yeah, okay.
It's a little bit cold out there. The key is don't turn the ball over.
And that's Bastianelli from inside his 10. He started, and he takes it out.
It's okay though. Wayne would pack us a lunch, and we'd all have our backpacks for the trip to the locker room and back.
With the lead. And we mentioned
We'd have some cheese strings and stuff like that.
Carleton and Concordia, and you see the score. It actually was at one time 10-0 Carleton. Concordia came back to make it 17-10, but you see the final score 31-20. Just one of 4 losses on the year for Concordia. Their record was just 2-4-1. They felt they had something to prove today. Skip Rochette said they were hungry. They wanted to prove the critics wrong. So far they haven't. Paulo Hollins from his 31 to Clark Oliver. And Oliver over the 35 to about the 36 for a game of 5. Tuffy, I guess right now, before we get to Tuffy, let's go to Peter.
All right, very quickly, Michael. John Dolly will not play in the second half. He has a helmet bruise deep in the lower back, and they have decided it's not worth the risk bringing him back out, so he's finished for the afternoon.
And Jeff, that was a broken bone as it turned out, right?
Yes, it was, yeah.
Any type of game they want to play now with this lead.
Well, I think
Cam says he had an interview with Peter Watt. Maybe that was at halftime.
What they would be thinking right now.
Yeah, I think in the halftime of this game, Cam and Peter Watt had come to the school early, and he had interviewed both Cam and Angus Donnelly.
That's Kerry McCowell, the injured ball
and
player.
then Paulo says he used to have a cigarette at halftime.
It is McCowell, McCarroll, and McDonald, the offensive line for the Washington Redskins.
The 1980s.
These guys call themselves the McHogs.
Were you sponsored by Export?
And we'll see what kind of job the McHogs can do
in
just a moment, as we'll return to Raven Field in Ottawa with more of the OQ Championship game after this.
Yeah, I think that was more of the 70s, Jeff, than our era.
Has been on the field. You see a better glimpse of.
I remember being down at Rider games and seeing Ronnie Lancaster, who was coaching Hamilton, under the stands having a smoke while the game was on.
On its way possibly to a berth in the championship game, the Western Bowl.
Grabbing up water, I'll be right back.
On November the 30th for the Vanier Cup. The way it works this
Who's
year.
44, Jeff?
That's Kerry McCowell out of Hamilton. He's our center. Another one of the Aces recruits that came in '82. A great player.
Center exchange is not the same.
2nd and 5. Paulo Hollins went to his wide receiver, Joe Barnaby, one of the Barnaby family. Let's tell you a little bit about that family. His brother Chris plays for the team. He's the quarterback. Father Peter quarterbacked the Ottawa GGs throughout the 60s. He was a defensive back for the Ottawa Rough Riders, as you see the handiwork of his son. His great uncle Ed captained Queens in 1945, and they tell me he was the last of the great drop kickers. And his grandfather on his mother's side was Tom Daly, who was a star with Hamilton and Ottawa in the Big 4 days. So these kids, the Barnaby kids, have football pumping through their blood. Hollins now at the 45. 1st and 10. The option. That's Mark Brown. And Tuffy, they say the job of a running back is to make the first man miss. He made a miss.
He definitely did. That was the counter option there. The quarterback ran it extremely well. He runs it a little better to the right than he does to the left, both the option and the counter option. But that was a good job there. But
when a coach,
Mark Brown is playing injured in this game. But you know, you talk about a guy who could change speed, stop, start, make people miss. I've never seen a running back at this level like that could make people miss like Mark Brown could even today.
If he's playing hurt, that was an impressive run.
Yeah.
Mark Skidmore, the star of the first
half,
starting the second half like a star.
How big is he, Jeff?
Skidmore?
Yeah.
He was playing at about 5'10", 210.
59 yards. Skidmore took it for the touchdown. There are no penalty markers on the field.
But I see the center, the backup center.
And big legs.
Joseph Teamy, I think it is, Mike, is also limping. The first team center just went out, and now the backup center is limping. So I think they could be in trouble as far as their center is concerned. There we are on that play. Does a good job of breaking it there, Skidmore, and then he outruns some people.
You saw the block by the wide receiver, Barnaby.
What you see, that man might have caught Skidmore, but Barnaby comes back and just not a
Those
vicious
hits are
block,
no longer legal.
You got to be careful that you don't get a clip there. I guess it was vicious enough to put him down, put the defensive man down.
Well, the job was Concordia's to come out, as we saw a interesting snap, shall we say, the conversion good. The job was Concordia's to come out and get the points. They trailed it 24-8. They didn't get the points. Carleton did. It's now 31-8. This one may be wrapped up. Yes, there is a wind. Yes, it plays a factor. But when you can run the ball like that, you can reduce the effect of the wind. Tuffy Skidmore has now scored 3 touchdowns, 2 of them running against the wind.
The wind doesn't blow down that low. You know, the wind's only up high
I think when you look at games from this era too, like we didn't have the 20-second clocks up, and the game had a slower pace, and I would imagine there's 25 to 30% more plays that an offense would get than they did back then.
Yeah, and especially, Jeff, the amount of running that's gone on, like, you know, a lot of teams now will throw the ball, you know, 30, 40 times a game, right?
Yeah.
By number 58.
See, Michael, I believe that in Canada, this kind of weather, at this time of year, you have to have a running game. Whether it's in the CFL, the CIAU, the high school
whereas an average day for one of our quarterbacks in this era would have been like, you know, 13 for 19 for 200 and some yards.
Now for Concordia, yeah, for sure.
Now it's like anything below 400 yards seems to be a poor day.
But no receiver. And no place to run. And that's been the story of the game for Concordia.
I think Joe Serino there could have made up his mind a little quicker to run the football. Most quarterbacks want to throw it, and that's what they're taught to do, and I think that's the correct thing to do. But there's a time where you have to make that snap decision. Do I throw it and wait, or do I run it? And I think he could have ran the football, you know, there.
Maybe the problem, as you see his statistics, is he knows his limitations, and Skip Rochette has admitted that Serino is not, shall we say, fleet of foot. But he did seem to have a lot of running room.
Looked like there was some openings there, yes.
And Carleton offside in one of the few penalties in this game, and maybe the first of the game against Carleton. The ball complete to number 11. Jacques Plourde. Nobody is going to catch him. The penalty will go against Carleton more than likely, and Concordia gets the score. Offside. Carleton. The score will stand. I'm not sure he was throwing for Plourde.
Well, I'm not sure. Here we are right here. Straight drop back pass. He throws the thing deep. He's got some time. Steps back up into the pocket real nice, and he delivers that ball extremely well. They just
was that a 7-step drop? You never see those things anymore.
Yeah.
And, certainly Serino, if you
he lost his footing as he was throwing that too. He's got a strong arm.
Yeah, that looked like a little bit more of, you know, some American stuff that they would go to a 7-step drop.
From there on, it's a foot race.
Canadian ball now, even the rare times on under center, you wouldn't see that.
Well, I'm not sure that Carleton didn't ease up when they saw the flags and the horn blow.
And Dan Mallon on for the conversion and doing his job.
Good.
So that makes it 31,
that play alone accounted 14. For more than half of their offense
scoring quickly. Now,
in this game.
Concordia is going to get back, and it certainly they can't allow another score.
Well,
so what would normally be a throwback homecoming at MNP Park is a virtual thing tonight. We're enjoying looking back at the only championship in the history of the Carleton program. November 16th, 1985 at home, the Ravens beating Concordia 46-21 to win the OQIFC championship game.
Well, you don't have to be a mathematician to figure out the average. One catch, 83 yards. Pretty good average.
Well, that gets your pass.
After this game, we went out to Calgary to play the Dinos in the national semifinal, and of course the guys that were on the team that are on the line right now will remember that. Greatly, the feeling of stepping off the plane and breathing the Calgary air when it was in the minus 40s and that was on a peak during the sunshine. The game time temperature was about minus 40, but with the wind chill, it was in the low minus 50s, and that was all I remember about that game before the game was the guys trying to talk me into licking the goalpost when it was 50 below. But it was just so ridiculously cold.
Was that the Greg Vavra era out there?
Greg Vavra had just left. He was actually with the Stampeders then, and Lou Lorick was their quarterback. But the Calgary team had a lot of guys that ended up in the CFL. Kent Warnock, Darcy Kopp, quite a few guys. The Forzannis were there. They were a great team. They ended up beating us 56-12 in that game. They scored 45 points in the second quarter, and you know, we played even with them for 3 quarters, but we just had that one bad quarter. But I mean, that was when our body temperatures just sort of just sort of went out of whack.
The bone of the hip. Your hip pads come up if you wear them high enough.
The other thing too is that we're playing on a Friday night, and you're playing 8 o'clock local time on a Friday night. So we get out the day before. We're playing a game at 10 o'clock at night, and your body clocks just sort of shut down. You know.
Real serious, but it is so painful to play with that. And it cost me a championship.
Why did
Jim Reed had it and couldn't play the second half against University
Why
of
did
Western
that go
Ontario,
become a
and,
Friday
I
night
felt
game?
That hurt our football chances that day.
Calgary always played their home games on Friday nights. Ottawa U always played their home games, and so did McGill on Friday nights back then too. So TSN would always show a Friday night game and then usually a doubleheader Saturday.
That time it was Skidmore again for...
It just seems like, so you guys flew out Thursday?
I think it's been a day of adapting.
Yeah, we flew out the day before and practiced. We flew out early in the morning. We practiced later in the day, but it was so cold that we just were like, guys were getting frostbite, and a lot of guys went down that game in the warm-up. And it was just so ridiculously cold. I remember I have a metal tooth, a crown from I broke its front tooth in a ski race when I was young, and I remember my mouth guard being frozen to my tooth at halftime of that game, and I had to kind of get in the bathroom and kind of run my face underwater to get the mouth guard off of my tooth.
Lots of guys on here, Jeff's talking about how cold it was and how they've never experienced anything like that since. Randy is saying that he still remembers getting frostbite in that game, and then Clark Oliver says it was the greatest party after the defeat.
We had a great time. I mean, the game was one thing, but you know, we had a great time as a team out there. It was a great experience.
Was it played at McMahon Stadium?
Yes, it was.
So they had the artificial turf probably back then.
This one will come back, and it's too bad because it's a magnificent return.
Yeah, they had the artificial turf.
So there's got to be a story here. Bob says that Clark Oliver's shoes caught fire from a heater in Calgary.
It was actually Mustafa Ali's gloves. They had those tube heaters. I don't know if you remember those or not, Steve.
Yes.
They had these propane heaters, and there's Kevin McCarroll there. Uh-oh, look out, Kevin.
That was a good block there, though. Nothing wrong with that block there.
Unless you're the player.
And
well, that's right. Now, then you're.
And Moose had his gloves on, and he was. There's a classic horse collar tackle by Morris there.
Yeah, there's some teeth chattering today.
Moose was looking out at the field, and there were these flames shooting up from his gloves, and Rick Smitch was up in the booth on the headset with Cam going, "Cam, Moose is on fire! Moose is on fire!" And that's how he didn't even realize it. And then of course it's you know, stick your hands in the snowbank and stop, drop, and roll and all that stuff. But one of the crazy things that went on during that game.
I want to go back to that punt return. It's amazing. They've recently put in rules to stop the peel back block, they called it. Oh my God. I forgot how much people got lit up by coming back and just KOing guys all over the field.
It's got a steel shaft in it, and it broke. But can you imagine what his leg would have looked like were he not wearing this brace?
No, I don't think I can. I don't think I'd like to. And Serena put it right there.
When that rule came in, Steve, one of the frustrating things for me as a referee was you know, sometimes the coaches are made aware of these rules, but in high schools, because they're not members of Football Ontario or anything, they are sometimes looped out of stuff like that, and the players have no idea. And what the rule is you cannot aggressively block somebody if you're going toward your goal line. So if you think of any special teams play especially a punt where, you know, you're running back toward your goal line to set up a wall. You're obviously going to light somebody up. Interception returns, there are a lot of them there. And it was probably a 2 or 3 year learning curve before people really kind of got used to that rule.
Well, exactly. I can tell you. After watching this again, it's a pretty darn good idea. Kevin feels that way too after that.
Yeah.
Coach, I'm curious to see how you'd compare this game with what your league at the time you were playing in down east.
The question is, should they have blown the ball?
So you try to
In
protect that leg there.
'85, we were not that strong a program. Acadia was actually the sort of the powerhouse back in that era. '85, and then Chris Flynn came into the league in 1987 at St. Mary's, and then they just went on a rampage. We would not have, we would have got cleaned by these teams.
On that play there, see, what's happened is Concordia is
didn't have
concerned
this
about the option outside. And what they're doing, they just run a power play, up inside, off tackle. You get concerned about that option, want to stop the stuff outside, and you start cheating outside, and they run the ball up inside. That's why I said I think the game plan for Carleton is just excellent.
First down and 10 again for Carleton inside the 50. This time Hollins goes to the area as a receiver wide open over the middle and over the head. It seemed to be maybe as much as anything an error in judgment by the receiver. Yeah, number 73, Mark Wilson, who right from the time he left the lines up, he was open.
Yes, I think what it was, Michael, the pass was thrown fairly well. I think Mark Wilson just misjudged it. He didn't think that the ball was going to get there. Here we are right here. Now he steps up into the pocket. It's not very smooth. He steps up there. Look, he has good pressure. Steps up in, throws the ball. Mark Wilson just kind of hesitates there a little bit, and the ball is overshot by a foot.
So Hollins threw a good pass, but nothing to show for it. 2nd and 10 now, as the motion comes to the right. And Hollins looks deep again, and this time, his receiver there. No error in judgment at all. Joe Barnaby brings it down inside the 15. You see the crowd.
Some of the guys might remember this about Joe Barnaby, but I think it was the year before this. They were having a promotion at Rideau Carleton Raceway, and Joe Barnaby, and I think the other guy was Grant Folkard, who was a defensive back who was very fast. They were both track guys in high school. And as a promotion, they ran against a horse at Rideau Carleton Raceway.
4 today. He had 4 last week. All 4 were for touchdowns.
Isn't that the Ben Johnson?
Now has them inside the 15. Ran against the deep man. Skidmore, the short man.
Yeah, it's been done a couple times, and I think even back in the day, when Jackie Robinson played for the Brooklyn Dodgers, he ended up doing the same thing.
Broadcast, not that we're taking credit for it, and we're seeing the same thing with Mark Skidmore today.
Well, what's happened is this, you know, the more work a good back gets, the better it gets, and that's the thing with Skidmore.
Would have been interesting when Tunde Adeleke was playing for your coach to put him up against a horse. He would have lapped it.
He's a 5'11", 210.
And, you know, he runs
the horse would have given up.
And the more he gets the ball, the better he gets.
He is the one closest to the quarterback, number 12. The deep back is Oliver. This is Oliver up the middle. He busts. And he took a pretty good hit.
Clark mentioned the party after the game in Calgary, and the one thing I'll remember about this, which was such a funny story, was Ivan Kelly was the team's manager, and after every game there was always Kentucky Fried Chicken and egg rolls. That was sort of our post-game nutrition back then. And everybody, I don't know how the whole thing started, but everybody ended up putting money in a hat. There were all these egg rolls on this table in the bar at they put a buffet on the table at the bar at the hotel, and we were all in there eating, and they had all these things of egg rolls and pitchers of plum sauce, and everybody put money in a hat for Angus Donnelly to drink a pitcher of plum sauce, and it didn't end very well for him, but he came home with a full wallet of cash. But that was probably one of the funniest moments I've ever seen. But I mean, you know, you talk about that team being a family and a brotherhood, and it's moments like that that you remember the laughs and the fun.
Today. And the Carleton Ravens are going to the West.
Kevin says that it was TKO. Dr. Joe Mack snitched on me about the not knowing the plays and needed to have the trainer put me out and played on Saturday in Calgary.
This is just knock down, kick out with your back there. Look, kicked out with the back. There goes your back up through there, Skidmore. You know, that's what people.
They showed the close up of the football.
That's what football's all about.
Funny to see the old J5B.
Grind it up.
Those things were like balloons,
like that. That's what,
like big rugby balls.
If you don't want to see that, you want to go see the guys throw the ball through the hoop and get under the gymnasium.
And you're showing
one year especially, there was one year, I think it was 84, where they had these huge footballs. And we actually never used the big balls. We were able to use the smaller ones, and so we always brought our own footballs in. The league let us do that.
Like the Patriots.
But it's pretty close.
Yeah, except we had air in them, and we didn't have a tuck rule either.
Basketball, and on the subject of that, NBA basketball. Great place to be, TSN, all winter long. The Denver Nuggets against the Houston Rockets, our next game. That's Tuesday, the 19th at 9 p.m. Eastern. Hope you'll join us for that. But the subject right now.
Steve, when did they switch to the Wilson ball? You remember?
They know that with a victory today, their team's just one away from the Vanier Cup.
I feel like the mid-90s.
Now this is a live ball.
I can't remember exactly, but I'm pretty sure.
I'm not knocking basketball, but there's a difference between basketball.
In the mid-90s, I remember that's when I started coaching quarterbacks, and they were using them then.
Well, I guess that tells it all. 38-15, and it's still the third quarter, and it certainly Concordia, a comeback wouldn't be unparalleled in history, but they better do it with a win if they're going to do it.
Well, it's going to be difficult. Things are very tough. I think that's one of Peter Watts' relatives there, I think. Did he resemble Peter? Because Peter's red right now. He just needs the black and white on.
Oh, Tuffy's getting humorous.
Well, Concordia's in a tough situation, and if someone will open up Peter Watts' mic, he'll respond to that, but maybe we'd better not. Concordia's in a tough position. They're a running team, Tuffy, down by 23 points.
Well, no matter what you do now, it's going to be difficult. So you just try to play a little football and build on some positive things for next year.
Well, that
look at the headset, Steve.
Oh my God. Yeah, that's old school.
And Sereno throws it to Delia. Open on the play, but they'll be happy to give him 8 when they need 10.
Well, yep, I think you're right. He's going to be about 1.5 yards short of the first down. I think Concordia's going to go for it. And I guess you might as well. It's going to be 3rd and 1, 3rd and 1.5. You might as well go for it because there's not much different getting beat.
Lots of comments about Clark out here saying that it was a physical game. Clark's giving out big hits. He had a nice kick out there. He's having a great game.
Rick Smith, we should talk a little bit more about him in a moment because he has kind of an interesting history.
During that whole era, Clark was one of the best pure football players that we had. He probably could have played anywhere on the field and been a star.
Concordia gambles and it pays off.
Here he is. Watch, he hits in there hard, and he kind of just goes over the pile, you know.
Tough. You talk all the time about hitting in there hard.
What would have been, I think, in 1983?
Well, I think you're kind of born with that. Some guys are dancers, some guys are power runners. And
QEH, where Clark played, beat Halifax West, where I was playing in the provincial championship. He was playing tailback. I'm pretty sure he was playing in that game.
Well, I think you can learn to become a power runner. You may have great strength. Most of the time, young guys in high school will kind of finesse a little more when they come to university. Then as they gain confidence and get a little stronger and a little more powerful in their body, they have confidence to drop that shoulder. Like
I think Clark, you can correct us on chat if you can, but I think Shaker Patterson went to that school too.
If he's got kind of the guts to do that kind of thing. Some kids never learn.
He was a character.
Still a character. Don't kid yourself.
And in the midst of 4 defenders.
Well, Michael, right there, what you saw is you saw him slip. That was Butte.
Mirko Booth.
And he slipped.
Jeff, was Shaker here? Was he playing in this game?
you know, the ground is
No,
frozen,
I don't
so
think
the
he.
is not the best out there.
I think during his first year, he didn't dress for many games.
Throw, it might have been a little bit behind him or start to adjust to it. You can't do it when the ground is in those kind of conditions.
But again, that just goes to, well, it shows not only the depth that we had, but also back then we're only dressing 36 players per game.
My teeth chattering, Peter, and I'm not tap dancing up here.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to see if I get
There's not many guys.
toes left.
This has been a well-played football game given the weather.
Particularly on one side of the field for Carleton, but Concordia has also.
I don't know if you can get a look at the broom ball shoes there when Leo
I just noticed that. Yeah.
You know,
Did you ever try? Well, you didn't try them for kicking, Jeff, but did you try them at all?
No, I didn't. I was fine. I was only worried about my left foot for planting, and I tested it out before the game, and I was fine.
Yeah.
This has been a well-played football game. They just haven't been able to move the ball very well.
Randy says he still has his Silk Clark Oliver Carleton red football jacket. He's never given that up.
First start. And certainly there should be a second along the way if those numbers are any indication, especially the one on the right.
Did you have cheerleaders back then? Was there the Ravens rhythm?
Not like they do now. We had a group of cheerleaders, but they weren't really official cheerleaders from the school. They were a group of girls that sort of formed cheerleaders on their own, and I think there were 6 of them. And
you know, you can't have everything.
Yeah, they didn't. I mean, it wasn't like today where they were, you know, doing great things as far as acrobatic stunts and
well, we were talking about Rick Smith earlier
things like that.
He won the Heck Trophy.
I do remember the pep band though, and that was a lot of fun.
No, he was drafted for the Toronto.
I always wished Carleton had a marching band and a fight song and all that stuff.
Randy says his daughter wears his coat at university and always gets a laugh. I'd like to know what university she's wearing that at.
I guess for your receivers, you like him to do a little tap dancing, as he did at the sideline.
Right. The receivers are tap dancers. Although I feel that Carleton's receivers, wide receivers, block extremely well, and because that's the key to their triple option is those wide receivers being able to block. But to get back to Rick Zamich, he was out with the Toronto Argonauts.
And these officials, Jeff, were they local or?
Yeah, Dave Shields is the head referee. He was one of the referees for most of our games. And then a few of the other guys like Terry Tremblay I see out there. When I became a referee, I remember those guys were still active as refereeing and they were, I guess you could say, mentors and teachers, you know, to the younger officials.
All of the tradition, the history in Rick Smith that he's incorporated into a Carleton football team that in less than 3 quarters has put 38 points onto the board.
Now for OUA games, they have split crews where they'll have you know, a number of Ottawa guys, but they'll bring in a couple of Kingston guys. There might be a Toronto guy, especially for a playoff game. They'll mix the crews up.
Well, we're inside 1 minute.
One of the big differences in this football compared to what you see today, though, is that, you know, you're seeing not very many penalties today, but the holding rules are so much more liberal now that guys are getting caught trying to get away with a little too much, whereas, you know, like now the receivers can come off the edge and grab outside of sleeve, whereas you couldn't grab at all back then. It was all just standard blocking.
Jeff Morris, you see warming his hands. He'll have to keep his foot warm as well because that's the key to this play. He's their punter. Back deep.
Bad snap.
And a good high kick into the wind. Maybe his best kick of the game. That's Steve Sumarah. And good coverage there by Carleton.
Fantastic downfield coverage again.
There will be a penalty.
Yeah,
the Concordia,
no question.
Find they'll start inside their 30.
Well, we're going to see another illegal block on this play. And you know what? It wasn't a vicious block because the guy realized.
You always see Doug Jackson, number 8, and Jim Lianos, 19. They're always the first guys down there.
He just pushed him a little bit. 24 just pushed him a little bit because he was in the back.
There goes Lianos. Take out Doug Jackson instead of the ball carrier.
The fans are having a good time out here today, and they probably don't realize it's just cold, Michael.
Well, there are certain ways, I imagine, Tuffy, that we don't have to get into to prevent the cold from setting in.
Yeah, they're cheering for TSN, you know. That'll give us a big raise, I'm sure of that, because everybody will hear that and they'll write in and tell them what a great job this has been today.
Steve, do you think football will ever cycle back to the game being played a lot more under the center than the pistol that you see now all the time?
I think you're going to see probably 20 to 30% of snaps over the next 5 years. They're going to get back under center. But I don't see it getting back to
Tough. I think we should put a disclaimer in now. We'll have to alert Peter Watts to this. Peter is down at field level. Were you
many advantages of being
Peter?
In the shotgun? Especially the way offenses are being played. But there is something to be said about getting under center, that's for sure.
That is an excellent football play by Joe Serino.
I went to a couple of high school games in New York State last year. Ogdensburg had a really strong team last year. Went to see them. Went to see Governor had a really strong team, and they're still running wishbone triple option under center. Not all the time, but you're seeing a lot of it, and it's like it's such a difficult offense to stop, and it's such a different look than the RPO you see out of pistol.
Yeah, for sure. One of the challenges of it is timing of it.
The bonus for winning this game,
a lot of those high schools, those kids have been playing that system in minor football as well.
Yeah.
You know, it's just
And Timlin, the former defensive back, now linebacker, shows why he can play both.
Well, he has good hands because he caught the ball well. Most linebackers have trouble adjusting to that and catching that ball. But Timlin's probably background as a defensive back probably helped him there. Serino does a good job of keeping his balance. You know, I don't know.
Look at him sliding,
well, he has good mobility.
Yeah.
There's Timlin. See, he has to adjust. The ball's thrown behind him. And he goes, turns around and catches the thing behind him, really. That's good adjustment. And you have to have some defensive background on that to be able to do that.
On the replay, Tough, we can only see the quarterback. I was watching downfield, and in defense of the quarterback, Serino, nobody was open.
No, that's true. He was scrambling around there, trying to buy a little more time. And it was slippery. He slipped first of all and went down, but kept his balance. And
Timlin was drafted by the BC Lions as a defensive back, and he ran the 40 for the Lions, and he ran it in only 5.0, and that's not the kind of speed that's going to enable you to play in the CFL.
No, not as a defensive back. Now watch this. Watch how he catches the ball. The ball's thrown behind Timlin. Watch. We didn't get a chance to see it.
And this is back live. That's Paulo Hollins on the option, and he exercises his option to hold on to it.
Okay, now, probably what he did there, he probably should have left the ball on the fullback. I just saw Skidmore kind of knock him on the arm.
Just to go back to your point about the wishbone
and
you don't want
that fullback to grab the ball.
This is some of the funnest football that was probably ever played, to be honest with you.
Hollins followed him up through the hole because he
I love this. I remember watching NCAA in Oklahoma and their wishbone.
Tuffy, I'm wondering, the way this works, then the fullback and the quarterback, they don't know ahead of time.
When I lived in Dallas, we'd go to the Red River Shootout between the Longhorns and the Oklahoma Sooners every year. It was at the Cotton Bowl, and I think 90% of the plays were triple option.
I believe it.
Outnumbered 4-1.
Well, there's your lack of experience. See, the man came in very quick. Here we are watching. He comes in very quick on Holland. Watch. See.
And Texas had Ricky Williams at the time. You get him outside on this play, and you know he's running downhill all game.
And as I said,
yeah, for sure.
He doesn't run it quite as well going to his left.
Very good job by Oliver.
Oh, excellent job by Oliver of not turning that ball over.
So Jeff Morris forced to kick it away. Carleton will grieve over that, and he nails a beauty high and long and pushing the defender.
It looked like Hank Olisic out there, Jeff.
Carl Doherty out inside his 15-yard line, so it doesn't appear to be a question of who's going to win, but by how much. Well, we knew before the game that it would be the Calgary Dinosaurs as one half of the Western Bowl next week. We are now 3/4 into this game, and it looks as though it'll be Carleton against Calgary next week. Serino intended it for Dan Mallett, who you have seen more than anything kicking the ball today.
Well, what happened there, Michael? Malice was a little bit slow on making his cut. The timing was a little bit off. Sereno threw the ball. If it had been a good day, good dry day, good field conditions, Malice would have made the cut a little sharper and a little quicker. Because of the field conditions, a little bit slow on the cut. The pass was overthrown.
Well, it's fortunate, and it has to be a positive thing for Ace Powell, that his team has responded well to these cold conditions, because next week, if they hold on to win, they're going to Calgary. And you know it's going to be cold there. Oh. Look out for the backside. And Sereno saw it coming, fortunately, but couldn't get around it.
Here's Bob Forrest coming in on the weak side.
That time on the blitz there, Forrester came in from his defensive end position, and they didn't have any backside protection.
Look at James Quick Parker
happened to see it, and he
coming around that end.
Otherwise, he's going to take a shot in the back.
Now, would he have been warned maybe by one of the linemen?
I think that's the sixth sense of the quarterback, really. Somebody missed a block. Maybe somebody was one of those watch out blocks, you know. They use those. I used to have my guys use that a lot. Watch out, quarterback. Just as he was about to get hit.
Bob Forrest was one of the first guys we had in the program that had been a star at the CJEP level. We hadn't ever really recruited in Quebec as a program that much before. I think it was Vanier College he played at. I'm not sure. And now you look at, you know, what percentage now, Steve, are the guys from CJEP now? You get quite a few Quebec players.
Well, you know, I think you know, a good move for Carleton right now is to
20% to 25% of our roster.
To the left.
Well, I guess now is a good time to invest in the future. You know, the game is
Skip Rochette also coached.
You know, the game is
been around a while, huh?
So now you can.
Queens maybe briefly.
I'm not sure. To be honest with you.
Key right now. They don't want any
maybe
between now and the end of this game.
Motion comes to the left this time, and the play goes up the middle. Oliver spun off a tackle.
And I think he was a quarterback, wasn't he, when he played?
Maybe one or two.
Okay, then he's hurt.
Not sure, Dean, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I seen when I was growing up that he was a good college quarterback.
He's also hurt. He's the one with the hip pointer, Brown. And they don't want to use him anymore today, I'm sure, unless they have to. But they may have to because they may not have another tailback dressed.
Well, next week starts to...
Clark ended with 88 yards on the day.
This week at this point, as we see 2 injured players down for Carleton. And we should mention, while we're talking about injuries, in defense of, as you see, Oliver bounce up, obviously okay, and actually the other running back, Mark Skidmore, down as well.
Well, I think Skidmore might have a cramp. See, in weather like this, you know, you can get cramps. You're sitting on the bench.
It's Dan Labanowicz, who was our trainer back then, that's with Skidmore there.
The weather is so cold.
Dan was from Hamilton, and he was at one point, I think he was on the national team handball team in Canada. I don't know if any of you guys remember handball. I used to joke with Dan, you're only on the team because there's only 12 guys in Canada that play it. But I ran into him in Hamilton a few years later on the sideline at a Ticats game. He ended up leaving Carleton, and he bought a couple of Tim Horton franchises in Hamilton.
Excuse me, Michael, he is the key. Sorry, but he is the key to their offense, you know, their running game.
They just showed an ISO on Joe McDonald. Somebody had mentioned him earlier. Joe passed away in 1992. He was a Sudbury police officer. And Joe was the real practical joker in the team. Like, Joe had his own kangaroo court. Like, if you got out of line, you'd come to practice the next day, and at the end of practice, your helmet would be stuck to your hair because he would have lined your helmet with toothpaste or your ear pads with perfume. He was always pulling jokes on guys, and a real fun, heart and soul guy to be around. And you know, when you leave a team like that everybody was so close, you don't expect that when you're getting together with guys, it'll be remembering somebody who's fallen or at a funeral of your teammate. But it was heartbreaking when we lost Joe, because he was such a wonderful guy. The minor football program in Sudbury is called the Joe Mack Youth Football Program. They named the football program after him because of the work that he had done in the community there.
And Steve, one of our awards when we we did the awards banquet virtually was named in his honor this year.
That's right, our Lineman of the Year award. And, it's interesting hearing the guys that played with them and knew them, and with such respect they spoke of them.
That was James Appleton, by the way, in for Mark Skidmore.
There wasn't a guy on the team
the kicker.
That, like, if you took every guy on that team and said, name your 5 favorite people, your 5 best friends, Joe McDonald probably would have been on everybody on the team's list as their top 5 friends. He was that kind of guy.
Oliver, the lone setback. Holland, the quarterback. And he throws it up, and good footwork there. You heard Tuffy talk about the tap dancing of the wide receiver. And Joe Barnaby did a little tap dancing there.
Smooth.
Very
Joe was drafted by the Alouettes and played with them in preseason in '87, but the team folded after preseason that year.
Oh, yeah.
And Joe never caught on with anybody. He's a teacher at John McCrae in Barhaven and was their football coach for a while, but they dropped football.
Bob Forrest is commenting that Tom Tinlin was a brilliant defense mind and the defensive leader and a fantastic mentor to us rookies.
Listen to those fans. Listen to that. I like it.
Yeah. Nice serenading.
I don't think I've ever heard that in a football game.
A lot of 80s hair in the crowd there.
Yeah.
It's like a psychedelic furs concert.
And you see Morris on to kick it right through, as he has done all day. That will be the 44th point of the game for Carleton. Concordia can boast just 15. And Carleton going to the Western Bowl next week.
Wow.
I guess it all tells the story. It tells you where we are because of the smiling.
Which bar did you go to after the game, Jeff?
And why they're smiling. Carleton,
I actually went back home to the farm.
Oh, okay.
But I'm sure the guys were all at Oliver's.
Well, there is an elusive quality in Canadian intercollegiate sport that is missing for the most part. It's called school spirit. We see so much of it in the States, and it's the big key and the big difference.
Yeah, my parents were up at the game, so I went home with them for the weekend afterward.
In Canada, look at this Carleton crowd. This is the best crowd we have had for a football game this year, no doubt about it.
Okay.
And add another one on. That'll make it 46-15 as Jeff Morris really laid into that one and kicked it into the end zone for the single. And you see where we are joining you from our vantage point, and don't be fooled by these parameters.
Funny to see Michael Landsberg ran here compared to when you see him on TSN now.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm sure those bleachers were really safe.
The nice thing about sitting here is you feel like you're amongst the crowd. You feel like you're one of them.
Oh, we couldn't get much closer. If we got any closer, they'd be passing me up and down the aisle.
They lasted longer than I think anybody expected them to.
Delia for the first down. And
was it known as Keith Harris back then, Jeff? Was it Keith Harris Stadium?
It was right around the time of the transition. It was Ravens Stadium for a while, then it was Keith Harris Stadium.
Play has been open all day right here. Same play. Quarterback goes back here. Throws it right there. Flat man again.
I've been lobbying for a Jeff Morris Center for the Performing Arts at the school, but I don't think I qualified either athletically or academically for such a great honor.
Both backs out of the backfield.
And Jeff, we all love you dearly, but you still were a kicker, okay?
Yeah, exactly.
That was very tough because he was running to his left, turned around and tried to throw it back to this side. That you have to have an extremely strong arm, and with this wind, it makes it. You have to have even a double strong arm.
.9:43 to play now in the fourth quarter. This will be the final quarter for the Concordia Stingers. And they'll start thinking about next year. Carleton will start thinking about next week. Calgary Dinosaurs in the Western Bowl on TSN. Screen pass. And there you saw Tiblin again.
The celebration we had in the locker room after this game, you know,
great plays today, and
I think a lot of the guys would agree if they played in this game that are online. One of the absolute raw happiest moments ever as a Raven. We were just so filled with just excitement and happiness and a sense of accomplishment and you know, especially those of us that had been there 4 years by this point, or in Tom's sense, or in situation his 5th year. It was just a great feeling to have won a championship.
That comes from the same category.
And had the Ravens lost a few of those championship games previously?
Well, I know those people out west.
In the 60s, there were a couple of championship games. There was a game in '78, I believe, where it wasn't a championship game. It was a first-round playoff game, but Carleton took Queens into overtime, and Queens won, and then went on to win the Vanier Cup. And you know, when you lose games like that, I know talking to some of the guys that played in '78, that's still a one that hurts.
Yeah.
But this game, you know, the 2 games that really stand out for me, the big comeback in the '83 Panda game and this game, 2 of the absolute best moments, and you know, nothing but great memories from those games.
I think Peter.
Not just the fact that you win, but you know, you're so close and such a tight-knit group. To celebrate and share it with everybody. You know, that was what was really great about it.
That's what he was going to tell us. That's John DeTore in a quarterback, number 4.
Clark says the party place afterwards was Stony Mondays. Forgot about that place.
Stony, oh yeah.
That's Jamie Appleton.
Yeah.
Isn't that a shocker? Clarky remembers that of the game.
Everybody tends to play, and I feel that you have to do this.
I think he has a tattoo of the admission stamp on his on the back of his hand.
You have to have a week of practice, and it always helps the week of practice if everyone gets in the game and feel that they've had a part of it.
Clark was such a fun guy to be teammates with. Like always smiles and laughs, and everything was just always fun and positive with him. Great teammate.
Played in full color today.
Well, don't you call it the Red Ravens, because they'll have your head for that. In fact, I'm a honorary Ravens myself. You know that they had made me an honorary member last year of the Old Crow Society, Michael, here at Carleton.
I can see the Pro Society, but not the Old Crow Society.
No, it's called the Old Crow Society. It's what it is, and I fit right in with that, you know.
You saw John DeTore trotting off the field. And there you see one of the reasons why this game has gone the way it is. Aggressive tackling by that Carleton coverage.
That was number 66, I think, John Oresti. And he just did a great job. Watch this. He comes down here. Good. He missed there. Look at that. Oh, good tackle.
Someone got him high. Someone got him low.
Yeah, good coverage on that punt there.
You were speaking of the crowd having.
Yeah, that's a guy benching 400 coming in like a missile on punt cover like that.
Wow. This year that, well,
John actually wore his weightlifting belt to class.
But today it was, and this crowd's into it, and it makes it kind of fun. Good pass and good reception there.
Now Sereno threw that ball between 2 defenders there.
Tony Diorio, the receiver.
Watch, here we are. Great drop back. He gets back. He gets himself set here. When he gets himself set, takes his time. Watch it. Watch the delivery. Good feet. Delivers that ball right between 2 defenders. See that right there? That ball had to be threaded like a needle, you know, and it was thrown on a button. At times, he throws the ball extremely well if he just would have a little patience and gets himself set.
And to the outside and breaking a couple of tackles, Mark Simpson. They'll have
son of Bobby, Jeff.
Here we are.
Yeah, that's Bobby Simpson's son. And in fact, during that era in that league, there were quite a few guys that were part of that 1960 Rough Riders group that had sons playing in the league. Like Kay Vaughn had a son playing in the league, and there were a few others. So a lot of football in the blood guys. But you know, Jed Tommy at that time was playing at Guelph.
He has no running backs with him, but now he has one.
A lot of these guys that were the sons of ex-Rough Riders all ended up going somewhere else. None of them stayed in Ottawa.
Well, he's got 3rd and 2, Michael. He's going to go for it here. You know, what would you have to lose?
I guess nothing to lose. You're going to lose the game, and even if you turn the ball over, it's not a bad field position.
It's really about, actually, it's about 3rd and 3.
What do you do here, Tuff?
Oh, a good draw play would be good now.
A good draw play. Let's see if they go with it. It's not going to be the draw. He's going to throw it to Delia, and Delia has been able to legitimately...
Steve, I don't know if you heard that on the audio, but I don't know if you remember this from when you played, but the head linesman and the line judge had these little horns that they'd blow when there was an offside. In addition to throwing the flag, I think they must have stopped that right around this era in the 80s.
I do remember those horns.
Guys hit in there hard, but he was 235 pounds hitting in there hard, and there's a difference between 200 pounds hitting in there hard and 235 pounds hitting in there hard. But I guess I'm a little bit prejudiced to the partial.
Jim Reed played for Tuffy at Lorient. Serino. And in and out of the hands of the
I think in this era, at the end of the quarter and the end of the game, they had a pistol too that they'd shoot off.
Touchdown, Michael.
That's the.
I'm not sure when that stopped.
We spoke of the Barnaby family. He's an architecture student, and he had designs on a touchdown there.
Watch it. Here you are. The pass is thrown. He's thrown back against the grain, as we call it. Watch, he comes up there, times it perfect. Watch, if he catches that, it's touchdown. You know, no one's going to catch him because everybody's on the other side of the field.
2nd down and 10 now for Serino.
That's Chris Barnaby that broke that play up. Chris was in the architecture program. And, you know, you talk about student athletes and some of the guys that carry heavy academic loads. The architecture program back then, incredibly difficult to be a student athlete and excel.
SIMPSON ran it well. And Concordia.
I think Bob Forrest might have been in that program too. And you know, you look at some of today's student athletes like that you've got, like Trevor Hoyt, for example. Isn't he in neurosciences or something like that?
Astrophysics, yeah.
Astrophysics, yeah.
He turns around and throws it back.
And Jeff, what did you study?
SIMPSON on the back side.
Plagiarism.
There for number 64 who sprung the play. That causes the play to go all the way.
I started in journalism and graduated in communications.
Tuffy, we can start talking next week about Calgary right now. And if there was a concern, if I'm Coach Ace Powell, it's on my pass rush, because Lou Lorick, even though he didn't play well in the game we had, can pick you apart if you give him time. And Carleton has not rushed the passer well. 2-point conversion attempt. Almost a great catch. But no.
Jeff, Clarky just texted me, and he thinks you're the Rain Man.
In the meantime, we'll take a short break.
Your memory of all the names.
They'll crown a new champion in the Ontario-Quebec Conference. First time.
Well, I had brain surgery last year, and they put a lot of DVDs. There's a big slot where the stitches are now, so I can stick DVDs in there.
Michael, 46-21. It looks like the Carleton Ravens are on their way to Calgary next Friday night. This is the biggest win in the 45-year history of this.
Jeff, Andy Donovan says that he's wondering if Oresti needs to hide and try and get you guys to jump. He would jump out and scream ho at everyone like he used to do on the Ford Res. Wondering if he did that to you guys.
He
had the loudest voice. And yeah, he'd walk around a corner and he'd be like, bang! And yeah, you'd jump.
7 years, and they come in, and Ace Powell took over here.
Great guy, though. Really intimidating guy, but a really great guy.
They're a very competitive football team.
Onside kick, and a good one. Even though Carleton will get the ball, he hung it up nicely.
He did. That was a really a good onside kick, and Carleton jumped up.
Hey, I love the sign. Hello, Dolly.
The player that caught the ball, Tuffy, was Mustafa Ali. He has not come off the field today. He plays on.
It's a different look with the bleachers on the
wide receiver Dolly was
on the Bronson side of the field.
Yeah.
So when he plays,
he's got a nice feel to it, though.
Dolly isn't hurt that bad because he's their best receiver. And
when Queens would come up and play us, every seat was taken, every seat was full, and there's people standing. Like it was always they always traveled with fans well back then in this era.
When did the hill get put on?
Was moved into the backfield, replacing Skidmore.
Oh, I don't know when that would have been.
Slight injury, but could certainly be pleased with his job.
Well, right now I think both coaches
Must have been in the era where there was no football.
Let the clock
Right.
run.
Because those bleachers were gone by the time you got to Ottawa, right?
Yeah, I didn't see them there.
Yeah.
I'm sure Ray Powell's saying, let's get it over with. I don't want to get anyone hurt. And I know that we're saying, let's get out of here. Our feet are cold.
I know the Concordia players are going to be disappointed. I spoke to some of them a couple of nights ago, and they were confident, even bordering on cockiness. Obviously, that wasn't an accurate representation of what was to come.
Now, number 72, Leo Benvenuti, was wide open for Carleton. And
these are the worst parts of the game. You know you're going to win. You're just begging to get out of this game with no one hurt, no injuries, and go from there.
They should call hot the maybe lukewarm.
Well, yeah, because it's not going to get hot.
That's Steve Sumarah, who tried his best to let the ball roll into the end zone. He didn't, but we'll have a no yards call.
Oh my.
Not that any of it makes any difference. The final score may change. It's 46-21 right now.
I don't know if you guys saw the end of the Broncos-Jets game last night. Denver was trying to run out the clock, and they had fourth down. They were up by 11 with about 8 seconds left, and they put their quarterback in to go back and try to just throw it up in the air. And it was Brett Rippon was the quarterback for Denver, and he took 2 really, really hard shots.
That's
and it's like you know, you talk about mop-up time and you don't want anybody getting hurt, but it's like that was absolutely crazy coaching in that game last night.
I attribute a lot of that to the fact that they're missing their number 1 running back, and that not only affects your team physically.
Yeah, at this point in the game, we're all excited, but the clock just can't run down fast enough.
No kidding.
You have to come into the game hoping that that usually doesn't happen.
Mike Madalena. Tuffy, I think that last play may have been reflective of the problems Concordia's had. It was intended for Mirko Booth. He's one of their 2 big tight ends. He's 6'5", Tony Diorio is 6'4", and Skip Rossett said they wanted to get the ball to their
Dean, it's a different game than now than it was then, and a lot of people will always ask, you know, how would you do against today's team? And you know, today's team is you know, the athletes are different athletes, and the game is different. It's played different, and I always tell them, I think today's Ravens would probably beat us by 10 to 14 points. But you've got to remember, we're all in our 50s.
Bring it back out in the flat. Tillman just did a good job. Showed his speed.
Not bad, not bad.
But I see some similarities out there, especially with Tom Timlin. He's like the Jack Bizarre and Josh Walsh of your team, Steve.
Yeah, no question. I mean, you can. I mean, even though the defense's style is completely different, the similarities are the physicality, the aggressiveness. Definitely has that same feel.
Corey Lee, 8 pounds, 7 ounces. It's a great feeling.
Well, I want to congratulate you on it because OJ and Joe Namath, they had daughters, so you know, you just showed them what it takes to have a boy.
You made an interesting point, Jeff, about the dress.
That's true. As long as they're healthy, and even if they're not, it's just nice.
You know, so many of your
around, and a young guy golf and tennis don't get it.
Tough, you show the way.
You know, a lot of that is not as common today.
Thank you.
Sure.
Yeah.
Carl, backup quarterback now. The number 2 man, John DeTore, and to kind of wrap things up, put the finishing touches on a championship victory for Carleton. Clark Oliver, if he can turn the corner, and he does, and he's complaining face mask, and maybe legitimately so.
Well, he's had an awful good game today. Here we are on this, it's just a quick pitch, and watch, the pitch was a little behind. Watch him, he comes out here, and he's had a great game today, really. Here he's running here, he turns the corner, he has good speed, Yeah, he's got it. They
Oh,
did
yeah,
have to hold
okay.
the face mask just a little.
It's not a face mask. It's maybe an unnecessary roughness.
They would call that today for sure.
His arm was wrapped around the face mask, and I really believe the hand was there a little bit. Oliver, he ran well today. He's done a great job.
Well, the star of the game was Skidmore. He's definitely the co-star.
Clark really had an ability to turn upfield as soon as he got on the edge. First sight of daylight, he was upfield.
Runs hard, and like I said, he's a power type runner, and he breaks some tackles. And I feel that him and Skidmore both have had outstanding games today, and I think Carleton, with the way their offense is set up and the day like we have weather-wise, you have to have two people that can do what these guys have done today.
Okay, tough. Next week, it's the Western
Clark
Bowl,
had also had an absolute cannon for an arm. He could throw the ball 50 or 60 yards easily.
I don't know.
And I don't think we ever used him on a halfback option, though.
Calgary is much bigger, and it may be difficult for him, but Calgary's an awful big football team.
Dettori got it back, and then turns punter with a quick little kick.
Well, if they can execute, if Carleton can execute like they did today.
We lost Steve for a few minutes here. They're trying to reconnect him, but in the meantime, Cam Collins says, after Paulo threw 4 TDs against Bishops in the semis, we all thought today would be a Queens versus Carleton rematch for the championship.
Concordia quarterbacks today, and when they face Calgary, they'll face
yeah, that's true. We were really surprised that Concordia finished 4th and Queens was 1st, and we had 2 losses to Queens that were both kind of last play of the game sort of losses.
I think we potentially have our best game of the year.
We were completely fixated on beating Queens, and it was sort of a you know, we heard that Concordia upset Queens, and we were like, you're kidding, really? But you know, Concordia is a tough team, though. They were by no means a cakewalk.
Like I said, when you get
Who were the Golden Gales big guns back then, Jeff?
They ran a triple option. I mean, well, obviously their offensive line was fantastic. They had Mike Shadd, who was drafted in the 1st round by the Los Angeles Rams. He was the line, you know, the anchor of their offensive line. But they had a quarterback named Pete Harrison, who was an option quarterback, and he got injured against us during the last game of the season, and he was out for the Concordia game. So they were going with their backup quarterback, and they just didn't have much against Concordia. But over the years, Queens was known for big, hard-running running backs. They had Larry Moore, who ended up with the Rough Riders. There was another guy, Greg Bond, who was Bobby Bond's son. Greg actually has a son who's an NHL prospect now. So they were like a power running team, and a very good football team. Well coached. Always, you know, Doug Hargrave's team always well coached.
Oh, absolutely.
You're doing a fine job. I just hope this game ends in the next few minutes while there's still enough light to see it.
Peter, I can still see Ari because you are red, and it's not from sunburn.
One thing they're talking about here too, Dean, is it doesn't show it on the camera, but it was almost dark by this time, and there were no the cameras are adjusted for the lighting, but there were no lights at the field at that time, and it was almost dark by the time we finished this game.
It was like a 1 o'clock kickoff, was it, probably?
Yeah, I think it was a 1 o'clock kickoff, but it was just one of those gray, overcast days in November that.
November, yeah.
Yeah, and we're in mid-November by this point. It wasn't early November. It was November 16th.
Yep.
So you start losing daylight pretty quickly.
Completes it to his running back, but nothing there. Nothing at all. It'll be 3rd down. And with 29 seconds to play, there are a number of
That's Andre Shadd there that just made that play.
One of them really mattered.
And Andre's son, Wolf, is actually a quarterback in the elite, the Ravens Elite Junior Prospects Program.
Oh, okay.
Great young football player.
He read the screen pass, floated out, picked up the back as soon as the ball was thrown. He nailed it. That's just a good job of bringing it. Usually it takes a little more.
Not sure if Clark's logging off now. He's saying thanks for the invite to the event, guys. He says you guys did a great job.
His handiwork pays off.
Thank you so much.
3rd down situation for Concordia. They'll be forced to punt it. And we can anticipate.
We couldn't do it without you, Kim McWaters.
Running one play and giving it up. And then starting to think about Western.
Apparently we can do it without Steve because we've lost him. I'm not sure where he is.
Sorry.
Oh, okay.
He's trying to get back in, but I'm not sure he's going to do it.
And there are now 4 seconds left, and actually 3 seconds left. They'll have to run one more play if they can keep the fans off the field.
It's going to be tough because the fans are down there on the field, you know, and it's going to be tough to keep them off, but I hope they show.
I know Mark Lee's watching saying, boy, I wish I could have worked with Tuffy Knight.
They don't need to be on there. They do. Coach Ace Powell give them.
Mark had some great color guys on CBC over the years.
At it, with the big guys.
Well, Carleton had a big year in the regular season. They were 5-2. They played good football. Last week, they literally blew out Bishops. The final score in that one was 40-20. And today has been a similar story, 46-21. The Carleton Ravens will win the Ontario-Quebec Championship game. 3 seconds to play. This will do it. And Carleton now, for the first time, can boast that they are Ontario-Quebec champions. They'll face Calgary in the Western Bowl. Now let's go down to field level. Peter Watts with the star of the game, Mark Skidmore.
All right, there were a lot of stars in this game, and there are a lot of.
You get a sense of how dark it is there.
Let's welcome Mark Skidmore, 150 yards rushing and 4 touchdowns. Congratulations.
Thank you very much. It's a total team effort. Offensive line played great today. Carleton's played a great game.
All right, Mark, we can't even hold a position here. Let's set. We'll take a break for a moment, and we'll come back to Carleton Field right after this.
I hear you. And they do a trophy presentation on the field, Jeff?
Tuffy Knight. I'm Michael Lansbury.
I don't remember, actually.
Next Friday
they must have.
The Western Bowl here on TSN.
And do you like the cheesy TSN Casio keyboard music? Very Harold Faltermeyer, Beverly Hills Cop-ish music.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
So Steve says he's sorry he's not able to get back in, but he says he had a good time and it was a fun night.
This was a fun
as usual,
night.
thank you, Coach.